But anyway, speaking of the Bible, that Hellboy trailer.
Yes.
He's in the Bible, right?
Yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God,
He
that
was
like a cannon fire.
Yeah, he was trying to think of a good place he would be in. He was there, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hellboy movie trailer.
He's in the chapter where he and Jesus fight Dracula together.
Yeah. It was a great chapter.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, Hellboy the Crooked Man, that trailer. I have one thing to say before we really kick off talking about it. This is going to sound like an insult, but I promise it isn't. It looks like a Shudder original movie.
I get what you mean. I've got something I'll say that sounds, I guess it is offensive. I'm not trying to make it sound offensive, but it is this. Mine is worse than yours. It looks like a fan film to me.
Yeah. There's some pretty high quality fan films. That's
nothing wrong. I'm not saying anything bad with that. I'm just saying like your average YouTube fan film.
Yeah.
And not saying it's awful, but compared to like something you see in the movie theater, it's night and day sort of thing.
Yeah. And for me personally, I'm okay with like lower budget Hellboy movies. Hellboy is like doesn't need to be a big budget CGI superhero franchise. Like a lot of his best stories are horror mysteries.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing is I have no issue with like the setting of this or anything because I haven't read any Hellboy, but I know of the art, I know of backstory and all that stuff, and I also have heard that like.
Sorry, just for context, I've only read Seed of Destruction, but I've seen like the animated movies.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard like this Crooked Man thing, like it's literally an arc in the comic. It takes place like what you see in this trailer, very much like Appalachian woods sort of thing. It takes place there, so it makes complete sense. I like that they're pulling essentially from a storyline within the comic. That's cool and all. My biggest issue with it, I'm okay with like Hellboy Blumhouse horror movie. I'm okay with, or Hellboy Shudder horror movie. I'm okay with that. My issue with it, I think, comes down to the look of Hellboy. I'm not a big fan of the way this looks, and I've thought about it because I talked about this with Austin from American Demon Comics. I think very minor things can like upgrade this look without having to redo all the makeup and stuff. I think Austin had mentioned this. I think I would like to see this, but if this wasn't a thing, I'm okay if it's not. Having the more like squarish jaw, like having a prosthetic or something.
I was
you see in the comics,
something similar.
Like squarish jaw, like you see in the comics. You can do that. Again, that's going to cost a little more money. I think two simple ways of making him look a little bit better is, and it's already shot, so I'm thinking of like post-production stuff you could do. Change the color grading on any of the scenes, any of the frames that he's in to where he looks a little more brighter in terms of the red, or not entirely brighter, but like change it to where, I guess the best way to say is like anytime he's in frame, it's very bright in terms of the natural light to where you see no shadows on him, and you can see like there's no, I'm not saying there's flaws in the makeup, but like it just looks weird without shadows and stuff like that. So basically any frames that he's in, adjusts the color grading of it, make him a little slightly more bright red slash like shadows showing. And then another one that I'd love to see that I don't know if any of the live action Hellboy stuff is done. No more human eyes. Give him yellow eyes.
Oh yeah, just like the solid yellow.
Yellow eyes, I think, could go a long way for this.
Because
I was looking at it. I was looking at frames from this trailer that he's in, and yes, I'd like to see the square jaw. Yes, I'd like the makeup to look better. And it's nothing against the makeup people. It's more like, hey, color grading needs to look better. But I think a big thing that could make it look better, because I put my hand over my screen and was looking at the face. I was covering up part of the face, and then I'd cover up another part of the face to see what worked and what didn't. Yellow eyes, I think, could go a long way in making this look better.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, it would be a pretty simple like digital effect that they could do after the fact. They wouldn't even have to make you wear yellow contacts.
Yeah. I prefer the yellow contacts, but yeah, it's a cheap effect. Like, that wouldn't cost much.
Now, of course, it would have to be meticulously applied to like every frame of the movie he's in. But
yeah, but yeah, he's going to be in a good bit of the movie. But I mean, the trailer itself, all the shots that he's not in, and that's like, I don't know, at least a third of the trailer, if not half the trailer.
Yeah.
All the shots that he's not in, to me, look good. They look like a Shudder horror movie or even a Blumhouse horror movie. It's just the frames that he's in just looks off.
Yeah. Of course, I think going for like a straightforward horror Hellboy movie, selling Hellboy as the lead without making him like a little incongruous with the overall tone is difficult no matter what.
Oh yeah.
Especially if he himself looks like the most fantastical thing in the movie at all times.
Right.
Because he doesn't because in the comic books, like it can all work out because obviously the comics have a consistent artistic direction. That is Mike Mignola drawing it, so like obviously he can make it all fit. With a movie where people aren't all drawn in the same art style, it can be a little bit of a harder sell to make this big red demon guy your lead detective in a horror movie.
It could work in that way if you had people like the lighting people and the cinematography people, if you had them have the same vision.
Yeah.
And because you could create a style for the movie to where it's like, yes, like somewhat bright red and shadowed Hellboy, like his muscles are shadowed and stuff, because Mike Mignola uses a bunch of shadows in his work.
Basically, cell shade your Hellboy.
I mean, it, in my opinion, it looked better than what we have here.
Yeah.
But yeah, like doing that as well as giving the yellow eyes. If you make the environment like the dark and shadowy woods that it can be, like it can work in that style.
So here's what I think. I think that any studio that gets the rights to Hellboy at some point, even to release it theatrically, just needs to nut up and commit to animated Hellboy movies.
Yes. Here's the thing. I would much rather see that. I think that would be the thing that looks best. It will look best. The issue is, at least here in the States,
it would sell
poorly. Yeah. We're not going to get a theatrical release with this.
Yeah.
If it was animated.
I know, and that sucks so much. I don't understand why there's such a stigma against animation in America.
I know. Because a lot of times, especially with something like this, like to capture that vision of the comic, how Mike Mignola does his style, it'd be perfect for animation. and it'd look different. It'd look new in terms of animation.
Yeah.
But again, will sell poorly currently. I think there might be a shift, or there is a shift right now. It's just going to take at least a couple decades before we get to that.
Yeah. Excuse me.
But yeah, ultimately, I'd rather see an animated version. But if we're going to keep doing live action versions, let's even with a cheap budget, because clearly you see this movie, it's a low budget. I'm not bashing it, like, but it is a low budget. Like I would be surprised. I'd be extremely surprised if it was. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can, but we need to test for a delay real quick.
Okay. Yes.
All right, one more time.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. But forgot where I was going with that. But
Oh, sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. Oh, I remember now. Like, if this is a $10 million or more budget, I would be extremely shocked. If this was a $5 million or more budget,
Yeah.
I'd also be pretty shocked. I'm assuming this is like anywhere between $1 and $3 million.
Yeah.
So, plus side for them, they're likely going to make their money back.
Yeah.
Like, whether this gets theatrical release or gets put on streaming, as well as with DVDs and Blu-ray and all that, it's going to make its money back. But even with that cheap of a budget, I think you can still implement those things that we talked about. Now, you can't do the square jaw anymore. We already shot it.
Yeah.
Had you started at ground one with this, like the story and stuff, you could have had all this stuff. You could have had square jaw, you could have had yellow eyes, the yellow contacts or whatever, and then digital enhancements to it if it needed it in post-production. You could have had, you still can have good color grading in any of the frames he's in. And it wouldn't cost you that much more to do all that stuff. But it is what it is. I'm likely going to see this no matter what. I'm not hyped by this trailer at all. But I mean, it's like it's Hellboy. Not just Hellboy, it's like it's an indie property. It's a big indie property, but it's an indie property in the comic realm, so it's like, yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah, Hellboy is, as far as indie comics go, an institution.
Yeah.
Like, Hellboy was one of the first, like, really big indie characters, like right there alongside Spawn.
Oh yeah. But
Without Hellboy and Spawn, characters like Invincible and The Boys and stuff like that probably couldn't have gotten the traction they did.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'd agree with that. But are you going to see Hellboy?
I'm thinking about it.
I got you.
I'm pretty sure I believe I missed the last Planet of the Apes movie in theaters, though. So if I missed that in the theater, then there's no telling what I'm actually going to see.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if you missed that and catch Hellboy, which I have no idea if this will get a theatrical release. If it does, I would be surprised if it's more than like a week type thing.
Yeah, before it hits streaming.
No, well, not entirely before it hits streaming, but more like it's in theaters for maybe a week. Like I see this, and it's not set or anything, so it might just go straight to theaters. But like this looks like straight to streaming to me.
It does. It looks like a like we said before. It looks like a Shudder original.
Yeah. But
which
we'll
again
see how
isn't
it
exactly
is.
an insult. It just
No. Yeah,
it's just
there's some
a
good.
comment on
The budget.
the budget. Yeah, like the apparent budget of the film and the.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I really think that a low budget Hellboy movie can absolutely work.
It can work. You just need to have all the visions match up.
Yeah.
You need to have all the people match up. And based on the trailer, I'm so if that's the case. Who knows? When the movie comes out, it could be amazing. You never know. I've seen bad trailers before and then the movie's good. Doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. So we'll see.
So the next trailer I want to talk about that came out recently is If I'm Here and You're There, Then Who Was Flickering the Lights?
Nosferatu. Oh, what's the line in the trailer? Because I've seen the trailer a couple times, but I haven't seen it in like a week. What's the line in the trailer that they say over and over again?
He's coming.
It's like he's coming. Yeah.
Bendis is coming.
Yeah, like it's coming. He's coming.
He's coming. He's coming for you. He's coming for you. He's coming. Like yeah, there was a sequence in the trailer I remember because I watched it today at work, where like I couldn't understand most of what they said in the trailer because I was watching it in the break room. But
right.
That is like the one thing I caught is that they just kept repeating, "He's coming. Something's coming."
Yeah, that's what I noticed.
Bendis is coming. And you'll never wash it out.
Yeah, overall, like the trailer, here's the thing. Before this trailer came out, we've talked about Nosferatu. Like, I'm seeing this movie no matter what. This trailer could have been dog crap. And
Robert Eggers, Nosferatu, one of the only existing horror properties I can think of that hasn't been pounded into the dirt.
Yeah. As well as like with Robert Eggers, like this is something he's passionate about. He's wanted to make this, like I forgot what the interview was, but he's wanted to make this like for a decade plus now.
Yeah.
Like he's wanted to do this. So it's not just something where like they threw him a thing and he was like, sure. This was more like he worked his way to get here. And he requested it.
What studio is clamoring for a Nosferatu remake on name recognition? Our entire generation knows Nosferatu from a SpongeBob joke.
I mean, that's the first time I heard Nosferatu was, when I was like 7 or 8 watching SpongeBob and that happened. And I was just like, oh, Nosferatu. Like I laughed because it's like, oh, it's not the hash slinging slasher or whatever. But I had no idea who Nosferatu was. But then like high school, that's when I watched the silent film and stuff. Yeah. But
I still haven't seen the original. I gotta watch it at some point.
It's good. I can't remember if it's like split into like 5 acts. Like a couple of the middle acts I'm so on.
Yeah.
But overall I enjoyed it. There's just like a 20 to 25 minute period where I'm like kind of bored, but all of it is pretty decent. It's terrifying. I still love the cinematography to this day. I'm not like scared watching it, but when you see Nosferatu in some scenes and stuff, it's like this would be scary to see in the 1920s.
even the iconic image of him that they used for the SpongeBob episode, that's a by itself.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like I love the way Nosferatu looks because I think it was 1922. Oh, holy crap.
Yeah, it's 100 years old.
100 years old. That holy crap. I didn't even realize that till now. Holy cow. Man, that's awesome. Holy.
Jeezy Pete's. Wowie zowie.
But it's like those scenes with him in it are still terrifying. And it is think there's music in it. I don't know if there's music. I think it may have been right before the music era of silent film. I can't remember. But yeah,
Because I think it's like
still
silent then.
yeah. It's still like creepy imagery of him, and I still love the way that actor and the design looks. And I'm sure is it Bill Skarsgård? I'm sure he's going to look good as Nosferatu. He's going to look good. I don't think I'll like it more than the way the old one looked though, because it looks so scary and good. Like it looks inhuman. Whereas I'm going to see Bill Skarsgård, and I think I may have saw like a set photo or something. It looks good.
Is that going to be like the third movie this year that Bill Skarsgård's been in?
Let's see. There was that.
He was in Boy Kills World.
Yeah, Boy Kills World.
He's in The Crow.
Oh yeah, The Crow. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. There's no telling what else that hasn't had a trailer yet.
That's also going to make him like the third or fourth Skarsgård that Eggers has worked with.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Because Alexander was the Northman.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah, man, that's awesome. But yeah, I've seen a set photo of I think him in the makeup, and it looks good. Like he's going to look scary, but I still see Bill Skarsgård under that.
Yeah, well, it's hard not to see him.
That's what I'm saying. It's hard not to. Whereas, like you look at 1922, you don't know the actor like you know Bill Skarsgård. So you look at that, and it's like, oh my gosh, this this is just an inhuman thing. Where it is an actor in makeup and stuff. It's like, this is just a creature. Like,
yeah. This thing lives on the walls.
But no, the trailer overall, it looks decent. Like I didn't have to see a trailer at all. Like, again, we've talked about, I'm going to see this no matter what. Because I like Robert Eggers. And I like that he's had a passion to make this movie for so long. So I know it's going to be at least decent. At the very least, it's going to be, hey, this is this creator's vision. So I'll like it for that at least. Yeah. And he didn't make the trailer. Like no. you have a trailer studio that makes the trailer. So yeah. Like the trailer isn't his vision, sort of thing. So.
And the trailer editors thought it was really important, that he's coming.
Yeah. He's coming. He's coming soon.
He's coming.
He came. Oh God.
Oh God. We'll never wash it out. For me, I'm really excited. Because it is Robert Eggers, and the only movie of his that I've seen is The Northman. But like that by itself sold me on him.
Yeah.
But also, like, to me, I'm just interested to see a modern Nosferatu movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, people are so... I wish I didn't, like, care or indulge as much in, like, internet comments as I do, but whatever. Like, there are people commenting on, like, when they see stuff about this new Nosferatu movie, like, no one can come up with anything original anymore. They just have to keep rehashing everything over and over and over. Well, it's like we're out of ideas. As if there have been a million Nosferatu remakes.
Yeah. That's the thing.
This isn't Dracula, people. This is Nosferatu.
Yeah. And also, like, this is because I get the complaint they're making. They're just making it towards the wrong movies.
Yeah.
I get that in the sense of, like, the amount of reboots that we've had or reboots or like re-sequels that we've had over the past decade. Basically, really, it started with Stranger Things. As soon as Stranger Things happened, nostalgia and reboots and sequels really took off. Yes, you had Force Awakens, but I think it really kicked off with Stranger Things. But like that going back for nostalgia and digging in the well.
Well, because Stranger Things was the proof that studios needed that, like, the 80s are back, people.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like basically 2016 to 2020, like you had a ton of reboots or resequels to stuff from the 80s.
Yeah.
And then now it's we have a little bit of that. It seems like it's more 90s now.
Yeah.
We're starting to get those popping. And I get tired of that. I personally get tired of that as well. Nosferatu is a completely different thing though. Like it's not the same at all. I'm sure I'll try to look up. I'm sure some studio probably made a Nosferatu in like the 60s or 70s, but no one knows about or talks about it. So
Yeah.
really it's that 1922 one. And even if there was one made in the 60s or 70s, that was the 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
Like that's over 50 years ago. Like,
yeah, that's still a pretty long time.
yeah, it's okay to do a reboot or a resequel or whatever if that's the amount of time. Like, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, like if we get one Nosferatu movie every 50 years, can people really complain about it?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
cause,
for me though, I also like I get it with certain properties, like ones that were nailed first try, don't try it again. Like like if they ever do try to readapt the Lord of the Rings to film, it's like, don't do that. Right. Peter Jackson and his actors and his crew, like everybody involved with those movies, nailed it first try.
Aren't they doing that with a show?
Rings of Power? No.
No. Not the show that I thought there were. Oh, I'm thinking of Harry Potter. Never
You're
mind.
thinking of Harry Potter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one where they pretty much nailed that first try. There's no real reason to revisit it other than like, money, obviously. But
like, and especially it's not just one movie. It's 8 movies. We don't need to reboot like 8 movies sort of thing. Like it's done. It's in the past.
An 8 movie saga where the most recent one is only 13 years old.
Right, exactly.
Like
let's make a TV show of it.
Yeah, we can let that sit for a while. And like Lord of the Rings, again, I'm that's the one, literally the only franchise where I will die on the hill of, do not ever try to readapt those books into another form. It's probably the closest thing to perfect cinema can be, especially as far as novel to screen adaptation goes. So like I will fight any studio executive who wants to reboot Lord of the Rings in a boxing match. I'll probably win. I really like win, especially if I'm
I really like the Lord of the Rings movies. I don't want them to, but if they're going to reboot it one day, give it 40, 50 years after before you start doing that.
Yeah. Like 40 or 50 years from now, or from those movies coming out?
If I'm a studio exec, from when they came out.
Okay. Because that's only about 20 more years for us.
Right.
Because those movies, God bless them, they're already 20 years old.
Yeah.
They've been with me for almost my whole life.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can tell, listeners, the Lord of the Rings is very important to me. But for me also, like, I look at franchises, like there are people complaining about that new Crow movie coming out. For me though, I don't see a problem with it for several reasons. One being that the Crow as a concept was built to be iterated on through ages. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like even the original comic books, like the writer of the comics made sequels where it wasn't even like the same dude being the Crow. Like the mantle passes on, and the movies did the same thing. There are sequels to Brandon Lee's The Crow. Yeah. Like why are we so precious about the original movie all of a sudden, when A, that movie isn't even the original text, and B, there have been sequels since. Why didn't anybody care then?
Yeah.
Why is it all of a sudden you can't reboot The Crow? Brandon Lee died on the set. This is disrespectful to his memory. It's like, whatever. Are we not allowed to build skyscrapers because a construction worker fell off of one while working on it once?
Yeah. And it's important to mourn and like feel for that incident or for those people, but like it sounds, and I'm not trying to be mean, it's just the world, like we continue. We still remember, we don't forget, but we continue.
Like that movie is a very, very important cautionary tale. And it's a good thing to remember. Like, this is why we don't use even blanks in our prop guns anymore.
Yeah.
Like, this is why muzzle flare is added in post these days.
Yeah.
Also, that more recently, that Alec Baldwin case is a good is a good reason for why that should be. Like, now that we have a good way of implementing an out of camera effect, like a post production effect on something that is in camera, there's no reason to endanger anybody anymore.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, wasn't it? It was just like an actual gun that was loaded.
I think so. I don't quite remember. There was some sort of like major mistake with
from
like
what I remember,
armory stuff.
And this isn't like because I know this case got so political. I'm not getting political with it. I'm not trying to do that. But from what I remember, for scenes of the movie, and apparently because this revealed to me what I didn't know about other movies, in a decent bit of movies, they'll use an actual gun. They just have a prop master / like gun person there making sure everything's safe, all that stuff. In scenes where like the person's alone, or if it's a shot of the gun or whatever, I don't remember exactly what it was. In this scene though, it was supposed to be the prop gun or something like that. I can't remember. And they forgot to switch it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't remember the full all the details of the case. I don't think I ever learned all the details of the case, but still, it's important to remember, like, for safety stuff. Like, the John Wick movies have used fake guns in camera for basically every shot. I think almost from the beginning.
Yeah, and you watch it, and it looks like a real gun.
Yeah. Because they
just do that.
They have actors who are very good at pretending that they're holding a real gun when they're holding a prop. They have a visual effects team that is really good at making not just the gun itself look real, but everything that it's supposed to be doing in camera look real.
Yeah.
So, like, when you have people that are talented enough to manage the effect without actually endangering anyone, that's good. That's one of those things where it's like, it's a good thing CGI exists. If only for that.
Yeah. And like I'm not leaning toward this side. I'm just mentioning it. There might be some business exec sort of thing where it's like, it costs a little more. Like prop guns sometimes are more expensive than actual guns, and then the CGI also costs extra. But not endangering someone's life.
Yeah.
Like, it's worth it. It's way worth it. Like because ultimately, yes, 99.9% nothing will happen to that person. But if we can make it 100% where nothing will happen to that person, it's worth the little extra expense. It's not that much more. It's worth the little extra expense.
So yeah, regardless, other than all of that, like, The Crow starring Brandon Lee is one of my favorite movies. All right. Like, it's
like, really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. I love that movie. And like that, that crow tattoo that I have on my arm.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's not directly inspired by that movie. I think I've told you about a lot of a lot of my stories that I've like written over the past 15 years that I've been refining basically since I was a teenager, it's very, very heavily Crow influenced.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So like yeah, like the Crow is another thing that's super important to me, but I don't feel the same way about like rebooting it that I do about Lord of the Rings, because like I said, Lord of the Rings, they nailed that adaptation first try. Like, don't try again. The
Right.
Crow, while I think they generally nailed the movie, I haven't read the comics, so I can't speak to whether or not it's a good adaptation. But as far as what the movie needed to be, they nailed it. I think they did a fantastic job. Like I said, one of my favorite movies. But it's also a premise that wasn't built to be singular.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah. It
is
goes
something that can be
beyond.
built on and iterated on.
Yeah. Exactly. As well as I like The Crow. I don't love it. I like the movie The Crow. Um, but it's also a thing of and this isn't a negative to it. It's actually a positive. It feels, and I'm assuming it gets a lot of this from the comic as well, because that was late 80s, 90s, I think.
Yeah.
It feels very dark and
Mm.
90s. Like it
Yes.
feels like that time period. And
The
so,
I did a lot of research on the Crow comic book when I was younger, and if I remember correctly, I believe the author was going through a pretty intense depression when he wrote it.
oh, okay. Yeah, that was a thing, like not entirely like all of the look of The Crow. Um, but there was a lot of movies in the 90s that like pivoted towards darkness and dark atmosphere
Yeah.
and different stuff like that. And you also see it with your superhero movies as well, like Batman Returns, all that
Yeah.
stuff. Um, but
Oh, there goes
I,
Batman again.
yeah,
Hey, look, it's
I
Batman.
mentioned
What's he up to?
I mentioned that of like, yeah, it's okay to reboot it. Now it's still going to have similar atmosphere and stuff,
Yeah.
but it's in a 2024 lens kind of
Yeah, like
compared to that 90s style of movie making, which
yeah,
was dark.
updating it for a contemporary context, I think, is just fine.
Yeah, yeah,
And like again, like going back to like visual effects stuff, they can lean harder on some of the horror elements of the Crow and like the gore and the violence of it.
yeah, yeah.
Like the Crow is raw, unadulterated, like 80s gothic edge.
Right, yeah, yeah,
And I want to see, like, when I go to the theater, because I am seeing that new Crow in the theater. I'm
right.
not gonna miss that one. But when I go to the theater to see the Crow, what I want is basically the 2020 equivalent of raw, unadulterated 80s gothic edge.
Right, yeah, yeah. When does it come out?
It's supposed to be sometime, I think, this month.
Oh, really? Oh, August. Late
Oh, okay,
August.
next month. All right.
For some reason, I thought it was like September or something. Okay.
It's releasing to a post Deadpool and Wolverine world. We'll see how the cinema landscape is shattered by that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, The Crow. That's, you see, weirdly enough. Now a lot of people don't know that The Crow was originally a comic book, but
Right.
the thing is, though, The Crow also, I think, while not as broadly influential, is kind of also up there in that like early indie sphere alongside Hellboy and Spawn. It's like this is an early indie comics character that like
Oh, it's
really
even
really paved the way.
I mean, yes, it paved the way, but it's even like more indie
Yeah,
than those, I'd say.
yeah. I'd say
Um,
that the original Crow comic is. I'm not gonna quite say it's underground, but it's borderline.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think like it was underground and just got swept up by someone, and that's how you got the popularity. But I definitely say underground.
Mm.
Semi big underground, but
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know the full history behind the comic book because I know it's not as obscure and grimy as like Fritz the Cat, but
Right.
but yeah, it's definitely not as mainstream as something like Hellboy or Spawn.
Yeah. I'm trying to
As
see what.
said before, people know The Crow more as a movie than as a comic.
Right. I'm trying to see what comes out the same weekend. Hopefully nothing too big.
Yeah.
Kind of guarantee at least a successful opening weekend. I haven't heard of any of these movies, so it looks like its weekend should be good.
Yeah, if The Crow is not going up against anything like mainstream, then it should be or anything big, then it should be fine. As long as The Crow doesn't have to compete with something major. And like I said, it's a post Deadpool and Wolverine world. Deadpool and Wolverine's going to be several weeks along, so people are going to be going and seeing like things besides it by then.
Yeah, and the only things it's really competing with the week before is Horizon and American Saga Chapter 2, which this first one that came out a couple weeks ago tanked. Well. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about that competition. The only competition is the week before Alien Romulus comes out, but it's I think you're good.
Yeah.
Alien Romulus will do decent, but it's not like Dune 3 is coming out or anything. It's not like the next Star Wars or the next Marvel movie. Like I think you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's but Oppenheimer 2.
Yeah. We have Barbie 2 and Oppenheimer 2 coming out the same weekend that The Crow comes out. That would be horrible. Like if I was the studio of The Crow, like even if, because I know it costs money for them to push a date back or push a date forward.
Yeah.
Even if it costs us like a couple million or a few million or whatever, you would need to do it.
Yeah.
You'd have to do it. It's going to work out better for you to push it 3 or 4 weeks later or 3 or 4 weeks before. Like you would be buried in the box office if that was the case.
Yeah, I would rather go up against Deadpool and Wolverine than Barbie 2 at this point.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I think I lost
Barbie 2. Oh, you did? Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, but I want to check for delays real quick.
Okay. Yes.
All right, one more try.
Yes.
All right, that should be good.
Okay. But yeah, like Barbie 2, it's not a straight up guarantee, but whenever Barbie 2 happens, you're looking at probably $1 billion.
Probably.
Like I don't know if it'll make the same as Barbie 1 because I think it was going to make a lot of money in the first place, but a big thing that pushed both that and Oppenheimer was the Barbenheimer thing.
Yeah, the Barbenheimer phenomenon, which scientists will be studying for decades to come.
Yeah. But it'll come close to $1 billion.
That is probably something social scientists could be studying for a while.
Oh yeah,
understand how it happened.
Yeah, you would need to, and you'd. I wouldn't be surprised if there's not like artificial synergy between companies to try to not recreate that, but create something like that similar.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, our studio has this crazy horror movie coming out this weekend. I heard you guys are making this new Mattel nice movie. Not saying it's Barbie, but some Mattel part. Y'all are making this new Mattel toy movie that's all fun and stuff.
That Hot Wheels movie that they've been talking about for like 10 years is finally coming out.
Yeah. let's have them come out the same weekend, and let's try to, with our marketing department, let's try to artificially create a mini Barbenheimer again. Let's try to do that.
Yeah. It would fail miserably.
It would fail miserably, but I would, and I'd get fired if it didn't work for sure. But I would try that at least if I was in one of their things, because it's like, okay, we know, or we're fairly certain our movie is going to make this much. But what if it could make this much by doing this little Barbenheimer 2 sort of thing?
Yeah.
It wouldn't capture the same magic, but
yeah, Barbenheimer's never happening again.
No. But yeah.
No, definitely not.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. Look,
Let's
boss, listen. Barbenheimer, it was a one-time thing. You can't just recreate it in a boardroom.
You were thinking of Gangster. I was thinking of Rain Man with Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise.
I was thinking like showing
Definitely
New York
not.
Executive. Like, definitely not. Like you can't. Listen, boss. It's just not possible. It was a once in a lifetime thing.
You're telling me we can't recreate Barbenheimer?
It was
You're
a once in
telling
a
me
lifetime.
I'm paying you all this money and you can't recreate Barbenheimer?
It was a once in a generation thing. It's one of those things where it's like the raw, unbridled saccharine purity of Barbie, brushing up against and juxtaposed against the harsh realities of that Oppenheimer guy and what he did, the bomb he made.
Look, Tony Two Shoes, get this fool out of here. Feed him to the fishes.
Okay, boss.
I don't want to hear this.
Tony, what are you doing? You're my cousin. Tony. I'll take care of him too, sweet. As he walks out the door, he's a big guy. He got big baggy pants.
Yeah. And Jimmy Two Hands, go find me someone that can make Barbenheimer 2 happen.
I still say it's a really weird nickname. Who like Two Hands is the standard.
Yeah, but I like your hands.
I
like you got 2 of them.
I don't make very many demands of you, boss. I never want to hear you say that way again.
I don't want to hear what you want to hear, all right? I'm the boss. You're Jimmy Two Hands. Do what I say.
Speaking
of Tommy Two Cheeks.
Tommy Two Cheeks.
I'm not going anywhere with that. I was just thinking of more.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Speaking of like bosses and henchmen, I actually have something of a short movie review to give before I also want to, before we're done recording today, Freudian slip. Before we're finished recording today, I want to do the next milestone of the manga study. That's right, everybody. You thought it was dead, didn't you? But it's still here. I'm still doing it. I just got busy.
Chugging along.
Yeah. But before we do all that, I gotta pee real quick, so I'm gonna mute my mic and I'm gonna go pee.
That's perfect. I'm gonna go pee as well. All right, All right, we have relieved ourselves.
Yes, we both peed in the same toilet bowl.
Yes.
We crossed the streams.
Yes. The toilet exploded.
Is that uncommon for you?
No. I
that typically just happens when I go pee.
Yeah, that happens. It's just I know the listener isn't used to crossing streams while peeing, but that is the effect of it.
Yeah. You see, for me, my penis is so mighty and powerful that toilets just explode under the pressure of my urine.
Oh. Oh, yeah, mine is more just the urine itself. My penis is just there. It's the urine that has all the power for me. That's why I store it. I try to store it in jars to use it as a weapon. I, I go to I go to I go to court cases where you got this guy Dent. He's yapping at this one guy trying to throw him in the slammer. I'm like, hey Dent, think fast. Douse him with my pee. Then he becomes piss face.
Harvey, just wash it off. This is who I am now, Batman. I'm piss face.
Gordon, do you remember what they used to call me in internal affairs? Harvey, I don't say it. Harvey, say it.
Harvey
Piss face. Harvey piss face. Well, now you just drenched in piss. Now I'm living up to
pours out of the left side of his mouth.
Yeah, that's good quality. What was the movie
Batman can always smell me coming.
Oh yeah. What would hold on? I do want to think of this one thing. What would his instead of a coin to make his decisions, what would
urinal cake
be? Yeah.
He flips the urinal cake. Heads, you live. Tails, you die. How can you tell which side is
The side
heads is obviously the more corroded side. It's the side that's been picked on more. Harvey, you got a used one? That's just it's piss face now.
Piss face, not Harvey.
You need help. You're gonna need help. We just flipped tails. Fires his super soaker filled with pee at him. Harvey, that's really immature.
Oh
Your
God,
cake.
it reeks, Harvey. Yes.
I used cat pee.
3-week-old cat pee, Batman.
You'll never get that smell out of your cape. You're like a 13-year-old boy.
You know what for some reason if I ever run this city, the flag that I would fly for my city would be the Calvin pissing. That would be my flag. That's my image.
It's the end of the Dark Knight, and Batman's like, Gotham needs a hero. He turns Harvey's head clean side up, piss side down, and then he looks at Gordon and says, I pissed on those people.
That's what I was thinking.
No, you didn't. You can't.
You did. You can't. I pissed on those people.
I pissed on those people. We'll chase him. We'll hunt him. We'll sniff him out. He is.
Because he is the Amber Knight.
Boom, 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 boom. And those subtle like flapping noises that you hear in the soundtrack throughout the movie are replaced with flushing noises. Anyway, so before I really get into my review, I want to do a quick what we're reading, what we're gonna read, real quick.
Da-na-na-na, na-na-na. But
What are
still,
we
what
reading
are we reading
today?
today?
Um, we do reference the Weekly Planet a lot, don't we?
Yeah.
Anyway, so because I was just on vacation, I had a lot of free time. So I am caught up on. I'm all the way caught up on Smiling Friends. So I watched all the way through the second season.
Nice.
It was pretty good. I'm up to date on my adventures with Superman, which is
Eventually I'll get back into that.
I think it's only 2 episodes away from like the finale for the season.
Okay.
Because episode 8 just came out yesterday. They're doing some interesting stuff, dude.
Okay.
How far in did you get?
I've only seen like the first episode.
Oh,
I need to I need to jump back into it. At the time I liked it, but there was other stuff that was coming out at the time that I wanted to look at more. And I didn't dislike the first episode. I thought it was good. It was just like
low priority.
I thought it was a good starting place, a good refresher of what Superman is and what Superman feels like. But at the time when it came out, I was reading so much Superman stuff to where I was like, okay, I'm glad they're doing this, but I'm reading all this other Superman stuff, so I'm enjoying this stuff right now.
Yeah, I recommend at this point then, since we're so close to the end of season 2 as it is, I would recommend just kind of waiting until the season finishes, then binge both in one long go. It'll be about 20 episodes total once season 2 is over. I don't know how. I'm assuming / hoping they're already renewed for season 3.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's really solid. Jack Quaid, as always, great voice actor and perfect pick for this interpretation of Superman.
Oh yeah, I forgot he's Superman. Yeah.
You know, Jack Quaid, weirdly, like he does a lot of voice roles. Like he's also the voice of Ensign Boimler in the Star Trek Lower Decks. Who is another perfect character for him because he just has such a this is gonna sound like an insult, but I really don't mean this like negatively. He has such a natural dork voice.
Yeah. I was literally just thinking kind of like a natural boyish nerdy voice, kind of like not entirely like a nerd, but
but like it's not grating or irritating, you know what I mean? Like he sounds like a dork in the most endearing possible sense of the word.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Like I just don't have a better word for it. So like,
right.
And I love how much they lean into that sort of sensibility about Clark as a character in this show. Like they really embrace the idea that Clark is kind of a nerd.
Yeah.
So I like that. It's so rare to see like any type of Superman thing anymore. Not only depict him as like reasonably. Whoops! I think I knocked something over. I'm walking around right now.
I gotcha.
It's so rare to see modern Superman stuff depict him as like reasonably intelligent, but also like as a good journalist and also kind of nerdy.
Yeah.
Which I know being a nerd isn't like a standard trait for Superman. Being like intelligent is, but being a nerd isn't.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad that that's kind of baked into this version of Superman a little bit. That Clark has some, dorky interests. And that like in his personal life, sure, as Superman, he projects a lot of confidence, but like in his personal life as Clark, he's like very anxious. And unsure. And it's nice to see a Superman thing that really embraces that sort of humanity about him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a brief review of my adventures with Superman. I've also been watching, last thing before I actually get to that movie I wanted to talk about. I've also been watching the 2004 animated series, The Batman.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The
The
one,
very different art style, but yeah, it's
yes,
still good.
the one where Kevin Michael Richardson does the voice of the Joker, which is so out of left field, but like such an inspired casting decision.
Yeah, yeah. You got Joker with dreads, and he has like frog-like stances sometimes, but still,
Yeah,
I still like it.
he's a very acrobatic Joker.
Yeah, yeah,
I like that it's an interpretation of the Joker where they decided that he needed to be as much of a physical threat as a psychological one.
yeah, yeah.
Which they did something similar with the Penguin. The Penguin is still squat and chubby, but he's like a martial artist in this show.
Oh, okay.
Now this is also you can tell it's a 20-year-old show because they still sometimes refer to the Far East of Asia as the Orient, which isn't appropriate anymore. But it's like I said, it's 20 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like I like this interpretation of Catwoman as well, where she and like Catwoman and Batman's relationship long precedes Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle's relationship.
Right, right.
Like the two, by the time Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle meet for the first time, Batman and Catwoman have already fought each other and teamed up a few times.
Yeah, yeah. I like that.
It's an interesting like order of things to take it in. You don't see costumes first Batman and Catwoman relationship a whole lot anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, and like the way like that the first season handles like the filling out of the Rogues Gallery is also interesting because like for like the first 9 episodes, it's a new villain every week. And then episode 10 is your first recurring Joker episode.
Okay.
Like episode 1 is Joker, and then the next 8 episodes fill it out, and then episode 10 is Joker again. And like from then on, it's basically a revolving door of Joker and Penguin, and then whichever other villain is popping up.
Oh yeah.
Like I would say the 3 most recurring non-heroic characters in the show are Joker, Penguin, and Catwoman.
That's interesting. Yeah, that they got Penguin recurring so much. I like that.
Yeah, I love because it really solidifies Penguin as like that number 2 villain because he really like I feel like he's kind of lost that status in recent years, like kind of losing ground to Bane and Riddler a little bit. But for a lot of Batman's history, Penguin really was basically Batman's Dr. Octopus equivalent.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like, and I make the Spider-Man comparison there because Spider-Man's one of the easiest heroes to compare to Batman as far as villains go. Like, it's clear that like Spider-Man's Joker equivalent is Green Goblin.
Right.
But like, if you were to compare their number 2s, Penguin and Dr. Octopus have some pretty obvious parallels.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, like Penguin has been Batman's like number 2 nemesis for most of his history. And like I said, he kind of lost that ground to Bane after a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's very interesting that like and like Joker and Penguin will pop up for bit parts in episodes they're not even the villain for.
I remember like when I would watch it back when it was on like WB Kids or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember a couple episodes, I forgot who the villain was, but like Joker would just like appear kind of. He'd just be there for a second. That's cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But yeah, like within the first season though, you get like Killer Croc, the ventriloquist, who I think was the ventriloquist I think was like episode 9.
Okay.
So I find it really interesting that he would be introduced as a villain so early on.
Yeah, yeah.
as like one of the initial characters in the lineup for Batman's Rogues Gallery.
Right.
And like second half of season 1, first half of season 2, because I'm about halfway through season 2 now, have some really interesting villain team ups as well, which is another thing I love. I love the frequency of villains teaming up in this show, which is something that you don't see a lot in Batman cartoons. Like you get occasional partnerships, but I feel like usually in a lot of Batman stuff, his villains like are solo artists.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
not
like
a lot of
seeing
teams.
it's not quite like Spider-Man's villains, where Spider-Man's villains like all interact with each other and team up frequently.
Right.
Or even the Flash's villains and Superman's villains, they all work together all the time. But
Yeah,
Batman's villains, if they're not fighting each other, they usually don't exchange words.
Yeah.
So like seeing them team up so much is interesting. And like the first team up episode for villains was a Penguin and Catwoman episode.
Okay.
Which ever since Batman Returns hit theaters, Penguin and Catwoman are like a go-to tag team
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
villains. But yeah, and then like very next episode, Mr. Freeze and Firefly are teaming up.
Okay.
So it was kind of like once they got them all established as solo villains, that they started mixing them all together.
Yeah, yeah.
There's one fantastic episode where Joker poisons Batman with a venom that gives Bruce like involuntary laughing fits that are going to keep progressing until he has a seizure and dies.
Okay.
Pretty dark for an early 2000s kids show, I'll say that much. But
yeah, especially especially for that time, as well as that show. And like that show a lot of times was on WB Kids, which was also very kid friendly type stuff.
It's weird to me to see a Batman show specifically from that era somehow simultaneously be so sanitized, especially compared to the 90s series with Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
But while at the same time holding on to the darkness of Batman's stories. It's such an interesting contrast, and it's so like interesting to see how they accomplished that. But within this episode, this episode also, the reason that Batman was going after Joker is because the Joker in his most recent Arkham escape has decided that he is going to be Batman instead. So he made a homemade Batman costume, and he's going out punishing people for really mundane crimes like jaywalking, driving with your blinker on, littering, that sort of thing. But the way he punishes them is by Joker gassing them.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So, and then he went and tried to bill the mayor for his services. So that was pretty funny. And like that and to me, I love that episode because it seems dorky, but it's such a Joker thing to do, which shows me that the writers of the show absolutely 100% understood every single villain that came across it.
Yeah.
Because every single one of those villains, as different and unique as their designs are compared to like the standard you would expect, they all still feel like them. Like Catwoman is Catwoman, Penguin is Penguin, and they got Tom Kenny to do the voice of Penguin, which was absolutely perfect.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, so and like Clancy Brown is Mr. Freeze, and he does a great job.
Yeah.
But anyway, in this episode where Joker has poisoned Batman and also decided to be Batman, there's a point where the Penguin does a heist, and who shows up to stop him but the Joker dressed as Batman.
Okay.
Right as laughing Batman, smiling and having giggle fits, shows up to stop both of them. And also figure out like how to cure his giggle fits. He needs to get a sample of Joker's poison to complete the cure. So there's this incredible, because like all of the fight scenes in the show are weirdly well animated. It's like it comes out of nowhere. You never expect it to look that good, but it always does. but like there's this incredible 3-way fight between Batman, Joker, and Penguin, and it's just such an interesting premise for an episode, and seeing how it gets to the finale that it gets to is, and then like paying it off all in like 20 minutes. It's really good. It's a it's a good show.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, the voice actor who does the voice of Bruce, Reno Romano is his name, has the rare honor of being one of the only voice actors to be both Spider-Man and Batman.
Oh, that's cool.
Because he did the voice of Spider-Man in Spider-Man Unlimited, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, all of that leading into a movie review I wanted to do that doesn't have anything to do with anything else I just talked about. If anybody out there wants good kids, well, not kids specifically, kid-friendly superhero shows, because I would call The Batman a kids show. You can absolutely enjoy it as an adult, but I would call it a kids show. Whereas My Adventures with Superman is more a kid-friendly show, where I would say it's not specifically for kids, but children can absolutely watch it.
Yeah.
Like My Adventures with Superman is less vulgar than The Simpsons, so like it's totally safe for children.
When I saw the first episode of it, like the first thing I thought was like, oh, this would be nice to watch with like your kid. Like, like you would enjoy it and your kid would enjoy it as well.
And it really surprises me that they put it on Adult Swim for its first season.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Because, like, it's absolutely, like, yes, adults can enjoy it. I do enjoy it. It's a great watch for adults. But, like, it's not an adult show.
Yeah.
It's mature in the ways that, like, all the best cartoons are. But, like, I say mature in that, like, it respects its audience.
Yeah, yeah.
Which every good family-friendly show should, and not all of them do.
Yeah, I'm just imagining, I doubt it was like or maybe it was a cable type thing, but I was just imagining, like, you're watching that in between Family Guy and Aqua Teen Hunger Force sort of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Like one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
It's like, first up, reruns of Family Guy. Then, My Adventures with Superman. Then, Squidbillies. Metalocalypse.
Yeah, King of the Hill.
King of the Hill. It's the My Adventures with Superman Metalocalypse Futurama triple feature. I couldn't imagine 3 more different cartoons to play back to back. And it's one of the 20-minute episodes of Metalocalypse too. We're not playing the original. So yeah, anyway, yeah. So aside from that, like, yes, good family-friendly superhero shows. If you have kids and you want to introduce them to Superman and Batman, those two are really good choices. Batman the Brave and the Bold is also a fantastic choice.
Yeah.
I adore that show. It's so campy. Like Batman the Brave and the Bold really embraces that Adam West Batman.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's vibe.
And I love how much it leans on the more obscure characters.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Especially
that's how I got
regarding like the villains like Gentleman Ghost and Kanjar Ro.
Yeah, yeah. That's how I got introduced to a lot of those more obscure characters. Like, yeah, Booster Gold was like big by that time, but me as a kid, that's how I was introduced to him. Same thing with like Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle. Same thing with the Creeper. Like, it was because of that show.
Yeah, that show was my first exposure to Blue Beetle, Plastic Man, Etrigan, the Atom. I had no idea that Atom existed until watching through that show.
Yeah.
So like it was such a good show, and still is a good show for introducing kids to the more obscure DC characters who never get to do anything because Warner Brothers is only interested in making Batman movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hey, they found a really good use for Batman as a character with The Brave and the Bold. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't complain too much about it.
Yeah.
And also, Diedrich Bader as Batman is inspired casting.
Oh yeah. 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 He does great.
He's one of the best Batman voice actors in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, no one is ever going to be as good as Kevin Conroy. But
well, both of their Batmans are different.
oh yeah, they're very different.
Yeah.
And they both serve their needs quite well. I'm just saying, like in terms of like objective quality.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, like Diedrich Bader was absolutely the perfect choice for the Batman he needed to be.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't have done better than him for that show.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, enough gushing about Batman. I want to talk about the Venture Brothers now.
Right.
Complete non sequitur. So I finally watched the Venture Brothers movie.
Okay, and this was the thing that ended it?
Yes, this was the finale. I'm kind of hoping that at some point, like it's only a year old, so like an announcement wouldn't have come along by now. I'm hoping that like maybe they pick up for a couple more movies. And I'll explain why as I review it. So the title of the movie is it's the Venture Brothers. Radiant is the blood of the baboon heart.
All right.
Now for anyone who is interested in the Venture Brothers, I don't think I can talk about this movie without spoiling chunks of the show. So if anybody's interested in watching it, skip the pilot episode. Don't watch the pilot episode. Start with the episode titled Dia de los Dangerous and go from there. And it's a great show. It's absolutely fantastic. It's steeped in nerd culture and mythology, and it's just really funny. And the movie is also absolutely hilarious. It's been a long time since I've laughed that hard at like a movie.
Yeah.
It's just like it hits the ground running with the humor, and it like really, it's like because the same two guys have been writing these characters for 20 years, so obviously like characters are very true to themselves. Nothing feels inauthentic. Everything about it, in terms of like how the story feels, is very like on point and on brand for the Venture Brothers.
Right.
I feel like when it comes to this series in particular, though, which has maintained a very devoted fan base for 20 years, there are certain things that you might want to see in the first and potentially only Venture Brothers movie that didn't happen.
Okay.
For example, and this is just an example, and like you should never judge a movie on what didn't happen in it, right? But at the same time, like they built up to this movie for 20 years, and this is why I feel like I was very skeptical of it a year ago when I added it to my HBO Max list and saw that it was only an hour and 20 minutes long, and I thought, ooh, that might not be enough time. Because mechanically they did absolutely everything they needed to do to answer every remaining question and tie up the last of the loose threads, of which there were really only two or three major dangling ones. But in terms of like fan service and like things that would be satisfying for someone who may have been watching this since 2004, while there is a good deal of that, I don't feel like there's enough of it. And again, it's weird to judge a movie based on like there's not enough fan service in it, because usually people find that sort of thing annoying. They're like, oh, this is pandering. But like the Venture Brothers earned it, in my opinion.
Right.
Like as a series, the Venture Brothers 100% has earned the right to just go off on self-referential fan service for 2 hours.
Right.
But yeah, for me personally, like one thing that I would say is probably missing from this movie is the fact that Brock Samson, Patrick Warburton's character, barely does anything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He doesn't even get one final killing spree. And while his last killing spree in the show, which actually happened in the last actual episode of the show, was really good, one of his best, just because of how much fun he's having with it. I think that if you're going to do a Venture Brothers movie, there should be at least one scene of Brock just slaughtering faceless henchmen in the most creative and inhumane ways manageable. Like speed running Jason's greatest hits.
Right.
On a bunch of guys dressed like butterflies. Because like in the first, what I would say is probably the first proper episode of the series, which is the second episode. Dia de los Dangerous is the title of it, and the reason I memorized that title is so that I could recommend the series to people and tell them exactly where to start.
Yeah.
Because I think that the pilot is that much of a disservice to the rest of the series. Like if you start with the pilot, it could turn you off completely.
Right.
So starting with episode 2 was always my recommendation for the Venture Brothers, especially since nothing in the pilot ever gets referenced. Whereas 8 seasons on, they were still referencing stuff from episode 2.
Okay.
So that's why I think that's the true starting point of the show. But like, so basically, if that's the first episode you see, your introduction to Brock, like throughout the episode, has him vice grip a guy by the throat, and then as he's sedated, his grip is too powerful to release. So the best that his buddies can do is sedate the guy whose throat has been grabbed so that he doesn't suffer while he suffocates. And then later on, and the reason they had to sedate Brock so heavily, to the point that they thought they killed him, was because they hit him with a truck and he didn't go down. So that they bury him in the middle of the Mexican desert, and then Dr. Venture goes and finds Brock, gets him out. They go get Brock's car, and then when they're in like the hideout of the Monarch was the villain for episode 2. When they're in the Monarch's hideout, Brock throws his car into gear, and he's like, you go save the boys because they were kidnapped. I'll take care of these guys. And then Dr. Venture's like, are you sure you don't need me with you? And then Brock, with his eye twitching, is like, they hit me with a truck. So then Dr. Venture just puts his hands up. He's like, okay. And he gets out and he goes. And Brock uses his car to just mow these guys down. Like, mercilessly for like a 1.5-minute long scene. Turns his windshield wipers on to get rid of the blood. And just goes to town on them. And it like smoking his cigarettes like a chimney. And it's an incredible scene and a fantastic introduction to him as a character. And for like literally the last couple of things he does for the entire show to be like get close to finding Hank after he's run away, help Dr. Mrs. the Monarch escape when she's falsely accused of treason, and then grab the steering wheel to the helicarrier to help his leader pull on a skyscraper that's falling out of the sky. Like it's kind of underwhelming. Like for that to be our last memory of Brock as a character.
Right.
And then like also there are just some other like smaller characters that I personally feel were a little underserved. Like Shore Leave is just reduced to kind of just like a detective character, where like Shore Leave over the course of the series evolved into such a fantastic character. And for context, Shore Leave is a flamboyantly gay Navy themed G.I. Joe guy.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why he's called Shore Leave. It's a double entendre. Yeah. And the thing is, yes, a lot of his snark and his sass is preserved in the movie, but overall, a lot of like the way he functions as a character feels like it got a little sanded down, and he feels very toned down compared to usual. But so much of what made Shore Leave fun is that he's this relentlessly campy, flamboyantly gay sailor.
Yeah.
And it was done initially as in a very jokey way that like, oh, gay Navy guy, that's the joke. But then, over time, it's like the fact that he is flamboyantly gay, stops being the defining feature of his personality after a very brief period of time. But B, it's like that's what makes him fun too. It's like you wouldn't have Shore Leave any other way. The fact that he is the sassy, out of the box gay sidekick is like what makes him fun to have in the show. And like Shore Leave is one of my favorite like secondary characters in the series. So like, yeah, he's one that I also feel was a little underserved. But yeah, so there's just a few things I feel like it could have leaned into harder as far as fan service goes.
Right.
Because like I said, mechanically, the movie did everything it needed to. It answered lingering questions from the series finale that were left dangling because it was a cliffhanger ending. So like that's satisfying. It's like, where did Hank go? He went to look for their mom. Who is their mom? The answer is a little complicated, actually.
Okay.
And then like also, what's that whole thing about Dr. Venture and the Monarch maybe being related? I told everybody I was going to spoil this stuff. So like, if you didn't pause this episode, go and watch the Venture Brothers in its entirety, including the movie, and then come back before listening to this part. That's your fault. But yeah, like what's the whole thing about the Monarch and Dr. Venture maybe being related? Well, I assume you don't care about spoilers for this movie.
No, you're good.
Okay. Well, it turns out, so my thought was that, Dr. Venture and the Monarch were secretly brothers. That tracks. Dr. Venture's dad got around. And also it is established in canon that he definitely slept with the Monarch's mom at some point. Because he was friends with the Monarch's dad, and a lot of stuff happened there. That there's too much of that to go into in this podcast. But yeah, so like I would have thought like, okay, like the Monarch is definitely Dr. Venture's brother. Well, as it turns out, the Monarch's parents couldn't conceive a child. And Jonas Venture, Dr. Venture, Rusty Venture's father, Jonas Venture was already cloning his own son, which is something that is consistent throughout the series because Rusty would then go on to clone Hank and Dean repeatedly. But because they like the Ventures have a tendency to clone their own sons to keep as backups.
Yeah.
So, so Jonas was already, cloning his own son. So he let the Monarch's parents have one of the clones who grew up to be the Monarch.
Okay.
In fact, he gave them the one that had 2% baboon DNA introduced in order to clear up the male pattern baldness that was developing in all the clones.
All right.
Hence the title of the film, Radiant is the Blood of the Baboon Heart.
Yeah.
it's referring to the fact that the monarch is 2% baboon and 98% his arch nemesis.
Okay.
And for a bit, he's thinking, like, what does this mean for me? What does it mean for me that me and Dr. Venture are both clones of the same guy? Like, is he still my nemesis? And it's like, for me, I'm thinking it should be obvious that's the ultimate, like, villain-hero dynamic for the villain and hero to be clones of the same guy. So, like, the monarch should have been ecstatic to learn about that. At the same time, though, he really hates Dr. Venture. So, but yeah, eventually he does decide, like, yeah, I'll lean into this. This will be like my defining trait as your villain now. But yeah, it's just interesting. It's interesting. But yeah, so that's how they cleared that mystery up. And then the mystery of who Hank and Dean's mother is cleared up in regards to the fact that it is biologically a woman who was introduced in this movie, though a lot of the lore that went into her implementation relies on a lot of stuff that was introduced much earlier in the series. So, like, as a character, she has a precedent for appearing. It's just the first and only time she's appeared.
Right.
But yeah, so she, like, yes, biologically she is their mother, but there was no physical interaction between her and Dr. Venture. Instead, her eggs were extracted from her because she wasn't planning on having kids herself. And Dr. Venture used her eggs and then created, like, an artificial womb that he wore like a harness. And he obviously used his own DNA for the other half and carried Hank and Dean around himself.
Okay.
And there's a point, like, right at the end of the movie where, like, Dean is asking Rusty, like, so who is our mom? Like, just casually, because, like, they'd been through a lot by the end of the movie. He's like, who is our mom? And then Rusty's like, seriously, Dean, have we not had, like, enough, like, family revelations for one day? Can we let this one rest a little bit? And Dean's like, yeah, we could, but, like, I'm still kind of curious. So Rusty placates him by finally saying, like, I'll tell you this much. The person who gave birth to you loves you very much. And Dean's like, really? You promise? And Rusty's like, yes. Like, I know for certain they love you a great deal. Which is not something that Rusty confesses ever. Like, Rusty never tells the boys he loves them. So to hear that and then have the credits roll and then the post-credit stinger being the image of him carrying the boys around as fetuses in his artificial womb that he built. It to the audience, it means a lot because we understand what that means. That, like, oh, Rusty, for basically the first time in the series, told one of his sons that he actually loves them.
Yeah.
So it's, it's an impactful moment. So, like I said, mechanically, the story does everything it needs to. And there's one fantastic sequence where Rusty and the Monarch, and then Rusty's bodyguard, Sergeant Hatred, and the Monarch's number 2 guy, Henchman 21, aka Gary, they're all getting ready to go, like, destroy, like, the device that the bad guy is using to make the Venture skyscraper in New York levitate into the atmosphere. But they were almost given a warning that what they were walking into was an extremely powerful electromagnetic field, but the signal they were getting from the person telling them that cut off because they got too high in the sky. So they're going in to, like, destroy these, like, floating, basically Alexa devices that are creating a ridiculous electromagnetic field with a bunch of guns. They wander into it, and immediately they are all whipped around the room by the metal on their clothes and, like, start microwaving from the inside. And, like, blood is coming out of, like, their eyes and mouths, and they're vibrating through the air, getting slammed against the walls. Sergeant Hatred's pants get whipped off his body by the belt buckle, and you see the blood stain in his underpants because it's such a grotesque and hilarious scene. And like they all get into the ceiling vent and immediately crawl away, like whimpering. They're like, okay, Plan A's not gonna work. It's a hilarious scene because like, you know, based on the foreshadowing, something's gonna go wrong. You just have no idea how.
Right.
And to see this scene play out the way it does so suddenly and so viscerally, it like jars you into laughing while also being disgusted and horrified. It's a great scene. But yeah, this is also like, before I finish this review up, one last thing about it is this is not a movie that you can use as an introduction to the series. This is absolutely not an inroad. This is a finale and nothing else.
Yeah, which is why you said like the whole like a little more fan service type thing.
Yeah.
Like I could see that. Especially because, yeah, you said it's supposed to be a finale. So likely the last thing of it. So you could have a little bit of that fan service type stuff, since the people that are watching it, it's just fans.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, this is wrapping it up. If you're going into this thinking like, oh, the Venture Brothers movie, because like a lot of times these cartoons will have movies like that where it's like it can kind of be used as an inroad. It introduces characters.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely not what this movie is doing. You will not learn enough about any of the characters to get like a good sense of who they are or even what's actually going on. Like, right. The plot of this movie will not read well for anyone who is unfamiliar with the show. It picks up right where the show left off. No recap, just going for it.
Okay.
So yeah, if you don't know the show, the movie won't work for you.
Right.
Fortunately, the show's not crazy long, so it's totally doable to just go watch the whole thing and then watch the movie in like, I want to say about a week, depending on how much free time you have.
Yeah, because I think I saw the show has 81 episodes and they're like 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, there are a couple of like hour-long specials here and there, but for the most part, 20-minute episodes. Okay. For the vast majority of its run, 20-minute episodes.
Right.
But yeah, and the thing is, it is the sort of show that really benefits from a rewatch. There's so much that goes over a regular viewer's head on a first viewing. Like, I've rewatched the show 3 times already. And I'm pretty sure that when I go in for a 4th, I'm still going to be finding new things. But yeah, the first time that I watched the show, so much flew right past me because I didn't know what I was paying attention for, right? Like, you go in thinking it's just going to be like a comedy adventure, like kind of Johnny Quest parody. And then it turns into really, really intricate and highly detailed world over time. To the point that like some of the jokes just don't land if you like haven't been watching the show. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It gets to a point where like there are jokes made in like season 4 that just flat out aren't funny if you don't know what happened in season 2.
Right. And that sounds like that could have been played into the movie if that's a big thing in the show of like referential humor or referential
Yeah. Which
dialogue or whatever. Like,
there is plenty of that. It's just I feel like as far as character moments go, there could have been more.
I gotcha.
Which is why I think it should have been longer than an hour and 20 minutes. Because to be honest, with that movie's plot, they did everything they could in an hour and 20 minutes.
Right.
Like, that movie is super dense and there's a million things going on at once. So like it's not like they didn't waste any screen time at all. Not a single second of that movie is wasted.
Yeah.
Which is another thing for the Venture Brothers. There's never a second of wasted screen time throughout the entire show. Again, except for probably the pilot. But like, they are always doing something while the show is running. So yeah, like the movie definitely follows in its footsteps like that. But like I said, like it didn't have time for some of the character moments that I think it needed to really feel like a true send-off, like a real swan song for them.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm hoping that maybe this movie coming out renews interest enough to keep it going in movie form at least 2 more times. I'd be good with 2 more movies.
Right.
But that's just me.
Have they made any?
I think there's enough. I think there's enough in this world that's still left unexplored that 2 more movies can be justified.
Right. Have they made any announcements about anything further?
Not to my awareness. As far as I know, this is it.
I got you.
And yeah,
that's the thing, is
something I can be satisfied with if it is all there is left. It's just underwhelming. Or maybe not underwhelming, whelming. You know what I mean? Because it's
yeah.
exactly what it needed to be. But it just flat out doesn't have the time to try to do anything else.
Yeah. The thing is, thinking about like properties nowadays and creators, they could say this was the end and they're finished with it now, but I mean, like, you never know, 5-10 years from now, and they'd be like, hey, we do want to say some more, and so here's another movie or whatever. So I mean, it could be the end for now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if that intrigued you, listener, go watch the show. 81 episodes, which isn't too bad. Most of them being 20 minutes. That's not that bad. And then go watch the movie.
Now, when you read off that 81 episodes, are you including the pilot?
I have no idea. It's just what it was, either Wikipedia or something showed. It showed
okay.
81.
If that's what Wikipedia is saying, then I'll say if you subtract the pilot, 80 episodes in a movie.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely including the pilot.
Yeah.
But as I've said before, I've only seen the pilot once, and it left such a strong negative impression with me that I'm like, no, that's not a good start to the show.
Right.
Like, I stuck with it after seeing the pilot, like the first time I watched the show through. But like after having seen the show multiple times, I'm like, that and my memories of the pilot are like, that absolutely does not represent the quality of the rest of the series.
Right.
So yeah, if you skip the pilot, 80 episodes in a movie.
Yeah. There you go. And then you can hit Teo up and say, I agree, it was just whelming, or I disagree, I thought it was perfect, or I disagree, I hated it, or I disagree and I haven't seen any of it. There's a lot of disagreement online, so that's up to you.
Yeah. Get down in the comments. Let me know. Only people who haven't seen the Venture Brothers at all, let me know if you disagree.
Yes.
I only want to hear from people who have no idea what anything I just said was.
Yes. For people that have never seen any episode of the Venture Brothers, comment below how much you hate and disagree with Teo about it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, in terms of what I've been watching or reading, uh, I'll briefly say I haven't read any of these. I'll briefly say DC started coming out with their DC Compact comics. There's a big push that they're trying to do in terms of marketability and accessibility to their old classic stuff, kind of trying to get a new audience into comics. I like this initiative because it's these books are the size of your standard novel, also the size of like a standard manga tankobon volume, kind of.
Okay.
So maybe like some of those people that are into manga, they may see this, as well as this can also compete with that some. Not entirely trying to go against manga, but more help join the forces in terms of the accessibility and the price, because these are $9.99 each.
That sounds like a
$10.
manga volume.
Yes, exactly. And even cheaper than some, because some are $12.99.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
your
so
average
stupid.
one $9.99. But I would say I love me some manga. If you haven't read any of these classics and stuff, a little more bang for your buck, because they collect whole giant stories. Like the ones that first came out were Watchmen.
Oh.
So all 12 issues of Watchmen in one of these. And it looks good. Like I think it fits pretty well. I bought a copy of the Watchmen one because it's $10. Like, yeah, that's nothing. That's fine. I'll get another copy of Watchmen. This will be my reading copy. It doesn't matter if it gets beat up or anything. I paid $10 for it. But yeah, I think it looks good. I think they hold on, I dropped something. I think they
I dropped
formatted it
my
well.
that copy of Watchmen.
Yes, and it's okay because it was only $10. It can get beat up.
I
So yeah,
wiped
I got
my butt with it.
like what they're doing now. They started putting them out in June, at the beginning of June, and they're putting 2 of these out a month, like up until like November or December, and then I think they're going to go from there after a half year of these, see how many more they want to put out each month. They're still going to keep putting more out. I think they're just going to base it based on the 6 months, increase it or the frequency or whatever.
Yeah.
But so the first month, June, they put out Watchmen, and then they also put out the Court of Owls saga. So volumes 1 and 2 of Scott Snyder's Batman run, that 12 issues, is one of these. $10. $10. You can get these things. Watchmen, Court of Owls. So great bang for your buck right there. Both great stories. And they're doing it with classics or modern classics. And I think that's the way to do it for right now. At least if you're going to do this for a long time, at least your first 2 years, do it with your classics and your modern classics. Because you'll get people who are already reading comics to buy these, because it's like, hey, like another thing for me to get. It's cheap and I can read it. And also, us that read comics, we haven't read all of these, because they're coming out with some that are modern classics that I haven't read. So it's like, ooh, $10. Yeah, I'll check it out. And it also can get the new readers in, because it's a size format that they're familiar with, and it's $10. Like,
Yeah.
they're more willing to take that risk, but it's not a risk because these are some of your best stories. So that's a really smart idea right there.
Yeah.
July, so a week ago, they came out with their next 2 books, All-Star Superman, and then Far Sector, which was like a 2019 big Green Lantern book. It won like Eisner's and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I had never read Far Sector, so I picked that one up. I also picked up All-Star Superman. Of the 4 that have come out so far, the only one I haven't picked up is the Court of Owls one, just because like I've read that enough, as well as I have the 2 volumes. So it's like I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, I personally don't have a copy of All-Star Superman, so I got this. I've read All-Star Superman multiple times, is just through the library. And Far Sector I haven't checked out, so I'm looking forward to reading that. I mention all that because I think this could be a very good initiative. I'm worried though, like I'm buying this to support this initiative, but I'm also worried though that like if sales aren't what they expect them to be, they might just shut this down within 2 years, which I don't think is the way to go. I think something like this is going to take a few years to really kick off and show big numbers.
Yeah, it's like especially if you're trying to if this is a specifically an initiative to try and get new readers in.
Yeah. Like obviously the manga crowd based on the size and the cost, but also like I've seen, because of Mexico and some other trips, I've seen like manga in some of the airport bookstores. If you could, I'm not saying like airport bookstores is shows that you're doing well with your company or whatever, but it shows how far reaching you are with your product or whatever.
Yeah.
If I was to see this alongside the manga at the airport bookshelves, that would be encouraging to me, because then I'd be like, oh, okay, so it is outside of just comic shops and a Books a Million and a Barnes and Noble. Like, this is awesome. Like what I want to see this next be in, I don't know how well it's going to sell, so I'm not entirely saying I encourage it to be in the store, but it'd be interesting to see this in the Walmart book section with the manga that they have there. I just want to see this in more places than just a comic shop.
When I stop at a scummy little truck stop and I go to the men's restroom and I go up to the condom vending machine and I insert a quarter or however much it costs to get condoms out of there, I want to see this pocket-sized version or whatever it is, this manga-sized version of Batman, the Court of Owls saga pop out.
Yes. I'll be like, oh, look
at
there.
What the heck? This isn't what I waited here for, but I'm glad I got it.
I can read it, and then I can wrap my little weenie around the pages and maybe use it.
My little ding dong.
Yeah. Get a paper cut, but maybe it'll work.
Won't get to feel anything, but maybe it'll work. At least nothing comfortable.
That's DC's next initiative. Comic condoms. What it is it's a condom, but it has a page of a comic, and it's a self-contained page. It's a self-contained page, so you're able to read the person's wiener. You're reading a story.
Read their wiener. Yeah, Brandon, that sounds like an abstinence initiative to me. Whoa, hang on, hold still. I want to read this Bazooka Joe. You're about to feel my Bazooka Joe. What are you talking about?
Yeah, the person's like, come on, like I need to get in. It's like, wait, I'm reading. Give me a second.
Look, it's close enough to your eyes. You can read while it goes in and out. All right, this one's getting a little too blue.
But yeah, I hope they stick to this for more than 2 years to really get the data, the research on this, essentially, because this is like it's not a gamble, but I think there's a lot that they could learn from this, and I think it could do well. Just don't pull out of the competition. Don't pull this initiative out within
Don't
2
pull
years.
out like your comic strip condoms.
Yeah, keep it in.
Encourage us to do. Cupid. I gotta pull out so I can read it. It's so engaging.
But yeah, like
Look, this one rotates all around.
But yeah, I like it.
Wait, no, don't twist it to read. Don't twist it to read.
I think it's a smart initiative for not only getting new people in, but also the people that are already reading comics. It makes it a lot more affordable. It goes beyond like Marvel did this somewhat, like back in the early 2000s / late 90s with their like Marvel Essentials stuff, where it was printed in black and white and it was in a smaller format.
But those I used to have a couple of the Marvel Essentials books. Those are way too cumbersome.
Yes,
they are
yes.
like their height is the same size as a standard trade paperback, and they are so beefy.
Yeah. No, I like this. I think it's smart to go for stuff that isn't more than 12 issues, basically, because it already looks like a thick novel. Of the ones that they've printed so far, Watchmen is kind of the thickest one. It looks like a novel if you're looking at it.
Yeah.
And it's all printed in color and everything, has all the same stuff. No glossy pages. Obviously, I'm fine with that. It's cheaper not to do that. But yeah, it looks good. Just stick to it, DC. If you stick to it, I could see Marvel and others tagging along with you in this eventually.
Yeah.
I could see this being a not a game changer entirely, but
it could help.
It could help. This could help.
Yeah.
So I mentioned all of that. That's not even like I didn't read any of this stuff. I just bought it. Eventually, I'll read Far Sector. I've already read Watchmen and All Star Superman.
If you get a condom with Watchmen printed on it, then you would have Dr. Manhattan's Ding Dong printed onto a condom that you're wearing on your Ding Dong.
Oh, yeah. And if it's all of the pages of Watchmen, his Ding Dong's going to look very, very tiny.
Yeah, so like you can.
So you're going to feel good about yourself.
Look how tiny the normal Ding Dong is. Like,
yeah.
My Ding Dong is a lot bigger than that.
Yeah, because people, they always talk about Dr. Manhattan's Ding Dong. You can be like, they're all talking about his Ding Dong. Look at mine.
Yeah. Mine's way bigger.
Mine's way bigger than his.
Look at this. The way it's printed on here, like you can't even see his Ding Dong.
Oh, I got a magnifying glass. I see the page where Dan and Lori are banging. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm going to do something with this.
Yeah. Let's hear. Let me get this magnifying glass. I know it's hard to see past my pulse, but but here you can see this is the scene where Rorschach is yelling, "Give me back my face."
Ooh.
I'd like to give something to your face.
So I'm gonna have to take this condom off.
Let's see if we can give you a Rorschach pattern. So yeah, recommendations for the day: read the Book of Jonah.
Read Watchmen.
Read Watchmen.
Specifically the condom edition.
Yeah. You know what? Read the entire Bible. There's a lot more ding dongs in the Bible than there is in Watchmen.
There really is. Yeah. No, for real.
I know. I like that. Like I said that as a joke, but it's really not a joke. Anyway,
and
I'm sorry.
That whole Rorschach,
what you were saying with that joke.
That whole Rorschach to the face joke. Hey, like spillage of seed happens a decent bit in the Bible as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, recommendations. Yeah, help support this initiative of DC. I think it's not entirely, yes, it's supporting DC, but I think this could make a slight change in the comic industry for the better in growing it. Now, TV shows / movies. I'll briefly talk about the 2 TV shows. I've got a documentary as my movie recommendation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Brandon,
so
real
first,
quick, before we continue, are you, after recommendations, are you okay with, like, do we have time for me to do the manga study for the week?
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay, cool. Just making sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
Didn't want to end up holding you hostage or anything.
No, it's all good. Hold on. There we go. I feel better.
Oh my goodness.
That was the demon in me. All right, so the show recommendations. I've got a comedy show as well as a historical fiction show. First one I'll mention is the comedy. Very short. This is a easy watch, listener. So if you like comedy at all, watch this. Even if you don't like this show, you spent maybe 2 hours watching it, so it's not that big of a deal. Netflix's Tires, a show called Tires.
Oh,
it's got Shane Gillis in it. Yeah. It's really funny. I like it a good bit. It's about these guys working at a tire shop, basically, like a car mechanic shop. I found it really funny. The first season's only 6 episodes long. Each episode's 20 minutes long, basically. It's really good. And you could watch any episode in any order, but it all does have like an overarching story. Like there are references to previous episodes and stuff. And timeline wise, it does follow the previous episodes, just deals with different customers and stuff like that. But no, I thought it was really funny. Like Shane Gillis is like a major part of the humor of this show.
Yeah.
He's big in terms of his name and stuff right now. So that's why he gets major billing for this. But kind of the second main character, Steve Gerben, I forgot what his character's name is in the show, but like he's great as well. He plays this like kind of dorky manager of the tire shop who's only been managing it for like 2 or 3 months. Like his dad owns this chain of tire shops, and he was able to get a management position through his dad and stuff. Like he does great as well. Like those are your 2 main characters. Then you have your side characters and stuff. But really funny show. I highly recommend it. If it sounds so stupid to say, just really if you like any comedy, I recommend this.
Any comedy at all.
Yeah. I guess I should put an asterisk there. Yeah, like I don't know, if you like the more artsy theatrical comedy, maybe not this. But if you just like fellas hanging out and talking, this is pretty good. This is pretty funny. Which I've already mentioned. One of my favorite niche comedy genres is the occupation comedies. I've mentioned that with movies before.
Oh yeah,
like Clerks and Waiting and different stuff like that. This is different than that in terms of dialogue and stuff, because a decent bit of the dialogue is improv. Like the script, they have a storyline with the script, but when it comes to them doing dialogue, a lot of it is improvised, and it's really fun. You get like fairly genuine reactions from people and stuff. So yeah, Tires, watch it. 6 episodes. It's like 2 hours. They're making another season as well, so I'm excited about that.
I thought you were about to say they're making a Netflix show too, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, this was a Tubi original. Now they're making a Netflix original.
And then they're gonna make a Max original.
Yes.
And then they're gonna
and
make
then they'll get a movie.
A Prime original movie.
Yes. The second show I'll mention, I wish I had watched it when it first started coming out, because I really liked this show. I finished it 3 or 4 weeks ago, but it's Shogun. It's a FX/Hulu original show.
You know, when you said historical drama, I figured it was going to be Shogun that you brought up.
Yes, I really liked it. Like I wasn't sure how it was going to be, but I like thoroughly enjoyed it. To where it's based off of a novel that came out in like the 70s, and then they made like a TV mini series off of the novel in like the 80s. After watching this, they're going to make another season. But I really want to go and watch that 80s TV show because I heard it's actually pretty good. And I've also heard it's kind of one of the things that brought Japanese history to the US. Like it was like, because by that point, like we didn't really care or know much about Japanese history.
Yeah.
At that time. But when the show came out, like people were like, "Oh wow, like, oh dang, it's not all just
like have history.
It's not all just our racist stereotypes. I thought our racist stereotypes was the history." But no,
are you telling me that it's not just a bunch of little people with yellow skin and buck teeth and squinty eyes? No, God,
with the rice
no.
patty head?
What the hell is wrong with you?
But no, it is really good. I think it's 10 episodes this first season of the 2024 show. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Basically, there's many things going on with it. The first thing in terms of the big Japanese stuff going on, this takes place early 1600s, and these are fictional characters, but it is strongly based of actual Japanese history. And the character in the show seems like Toragawa, I think is his name. I can't remember. It's been a few weeks since I watched it. But he basically they're forgot what it's called. They're ruler of Japan. There's the ruler, and then there's like four people under him, kind of that are there. It's they give it some other name. It starts with a T. I can't remember.
I don't know.
But he dies. He dies of old age, and now there's like a power vacuum, kind of, and these four that are under him. It's just like possible war that is like festering and increasing as the show goes on between these four. And Toragawa, he's the one you kind of focus and follow on. And he's based off of an actual like Japanese shogun. But it's really interesting. So there's that aspect of it, of this power vacuum and these warring families and stuff. And also people have said this, I agree, and I'm not saying this in a negative way. It's somewhat similar to like Game of Thrones, where Game of Thrones focuses on like these dynasties and these families.
Yeah.
Not in sometimes at war with each other, but also just like power, like trying to be in power, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's about a feudal culture.
Yeah, exactly. But a part of that, there is a British ship that comes into Japan, and like most of the crew is like starved and stuff. Like they've been trying to get to Japan, but it lasted a lot longer than they thought, and a lot of them are dead and stuff. There's only so many left. Um, there are some crew members still alive, but one of them, he's kind of your main character in the whole show, and it's him essentially just navigating. Like, I don't want to spoil much. It's him navigating the Japanese culture of the time, because in terms of British people, they're like the first ones there.
Yeah.
And also, this guy is also based on a real person as well. Um, but they're there, but they're also not like the first foreigners in Japan. This is like 50, 60 years after Portugal made its way to Japan. So Portugal is like having dealings with Japan and stuff, and doing trades and stuff like that. And they have like tiny little settlements or like things within Japan. And at the time, the Britons and the Portuguese were at war because of religious reasons. Portugal was I forgot. British was Protestant. I'm trying to remember what Portugal was. But basically, yeah, something else. And that's where a lot of the war came into play. And so this British ship arrives, and this guy, he's learning about the Japanese culture, but he's also like warring with these Portuguese that are within Japan. It's really interesting. And the British guy, he gets taken under Tokugawa's wing, essentially, and like kind of becomes a mini general within this Japanese lord's rank, essentially. It's really interesting. I like it a lot. And I also like that it is this British person's perspective some. You don't see him as the central character all the time, but when you do see him, you see how completely different this culture was to foreigners at the time, because there's so many niceties and politeness and following by rules and your word is word type stuff with Japanese culture at the time, that you see him trying to understand and navigate. And I don't know, it's really, really interesting. I like it a lot. There is a story there. It's not just all history stuff, which I love the history stuff, but there is a story there. It's really good. But yeah, I highly recommend Shogun. I recommend Tires, recommend Shogun. Between the two, I know they're completely different shows. Shogun's the one to go with. I am looking forward. Yes. I'm looking forward to season 2. You don't entirely need a season 2. If this didn't get picked up for a season 2, I'm mostly okay with that. But I am happy it got picked up with a season 2. Now, the last thing I'll recommend, this one, any creative, this is a documentary. Any creative that is out there, any creative person that's out there, I recommend it to anyone, but I think creative people will get the most out of this. It's a documentary called American Movie. This might be one of my favorite documentaries now. I highly enjoyed it. This is actually spawns from Teo's original neck of the woods, Wisconsin.
Oh,
so got some Wisconsin representation in this documentary.
That's where all the woods are.
Yes, it is. But essentially the documentary follows this guy named Mark Borchardt, and he is like 28, 29, 30. I mentioned that because well, the reason I mention all the ages is the documentary spans over 2 years following this guy. but he's a filmmaker. He's like he makes local short films and stuff like that. He wants to be a filmmaker, but he's working day jobs and stuff like that. Like, it's something he wants to do. Like, he has a passion for it. It's not a career though. It's not the thing that pays the money or pays the bills. And he is basically the two people that are documenting this, Chris Smith and I forgot his wife. The backstory is they were at like some Wisconsin university trying to splice together this documentary that they were making. And while there, they ran into this guy, Mark Borchardt, and they heard his story and were like, hey, like, can we follow you along on this? Because Mark he was trying to make his first feature-length movie called Northwestern. And he was trying to make it, and this is within like the first 10 minutes of the documentary. Eventually, Mark is like, I don't have the resources in terms of funding as well as like reliable casting crew, because I mean, it's truly indie filmmaking. No one's really getting paid off the back with this. So don't have reliable casting crew. So I'm going to have to put this on the back burner. But what he does is he's like, I still want to make that. So what I'll do is I'll finish this short horror film that I started 2 years ago called Coven. And also it's Coven. It's spelt like Coven.
Yeah.
But Mark, that's a part of the small part of the documentary. They're like, don't you mean Coven? He's like, no, man. And he has like that thick Wisconsin accent, but he also says like man after every other sentence. They're like, don't you mean Coven? He's like, no, man. It's Coven, because Coven sounds too much like oven. Like, no, like that's one of the reasons he doesn't want to say Coven. He wants to say Coven because it sounds too much like oven.
It's Coven. Coven sounds too much like oven.
But yeah, so what the whole documentary is about then is these people documenting him making and finishing this short film, Coven. And it's really interesting. Like it's fun, it's entertaining. Like, what's so weird is I've seen it twice now. I watched it, and then a week or two later, I got my sister to watch it. And when me and my sister were watching it, this was like early on, she was like, is this like real? Like she thought it was like The Office, like a mockumentary sort of thing. I was like, no, this is real. These are real people. Like, because they feel like characters, kind of.
Yeah, people from Wisconsin tend to.
Yeah. And Mark, I'll mention his friend Mike in a second. He's also very interesting. Mark is a very interesting character because, again, he's like 28, 29, that sort of thing. He has that thick Wisconsin accent, says man after every other sentence sort of thing, but he's very intelligent. Like, the way he speaks, he's very intelligent, and he has like charisma and drive. That's also how he can get some of his friends and stuff to help him out with this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just has this charisma to him that you just want to see the guy succeed, even though like the odds are often stacked against him, because like he's 28, 29, he has 3 kids, and it's not like it's basically the oldest is like, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 or 10. Youngest is like 5 or something. So he's got 3 kids, as well as estranged from the girlfriend / baby mama. Like, they're no longer together. He's living at home with his parents. He has all these bills and stuff. That was kind of a funny part that they show in the documentary is he's talking about like all these expenses they has to pay. He's like, oh man, I got the phone bill, it's $80. He's like showing his bills. He's like, I got this one for the the rent. I've got this one for this, for that. And then he like has this one thing and he opens it up and it's like, I can't remember. It's essentially along the lines of like a mini tax break or tax refund. And it's like $50. And he's like, oh, hot dog, man. This just brightened my day. Something along that line. But it's really funny. And he's also working like the day job sort of thing to provide for his kids as well as provide for this passion that he has that he really focuses on the weekends. Like he's usually like shooting and filming on weekends. But and it's interesting. He also has a friend named Mike. Mike is kind of like the second character to this, like a secondary character. Mike is very interesting. He has the thick Wisconsin accent, but he's very quiet and he talks monotone and he talks like this. And it's very monotone and he has a slight happiness to him all the time and sometimes he'll laugh and be like, he'll do that. And it's just very interesting. And anything that he says or talks about, he has like that same like cadence to his voice, whether it's like a joke that he's saying to Mark, or if it's something like super serious or dark, like a dark story. Because how Mike and Mark first met was like Mike tells the story. He's like, well, one day I used to be really big into partying, and one day none of my friends really wanted to party as hard as I did. I like to party hard. And one day I was in my basement and I had this big bottle of vodka and guy Mark came over and he was like, "Hey, you gonna drink that vodka?" I was like, "Yeah." And so we drank the whole bottle of vodka. It's just like they became friends from partying hard, basically. Um, and one of the stories that Mike tells, this is like later on in the movie. He tells this story. He's like, well, there was this one night where uh, I was out partying. I was partying hard, and I dropped this acid, and I just and I just blacked out, and then I woke up in the hospital, and there was my mom there, and the doctors and stuff, and I was scared, and it turns out that I dropped the acid. The acid also had some GHB and it had some downer in it. And the doctor told me, you know how your brain goes on the image, it goes beep, 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 beep. Well, my brain, it was beep. So that story that he tells, that's like pretty dark. He has the same cadence as anything else he's talking about. That also seems like it kind of explains how he is now, like the way he talks and stuff like that. But it's there's a lot of funny stuff in this film, this documentary, but there's some like heartfelt stuff as well as very relatable stuff. I mean, like I think any creative could relate to this movie. It's very, very inspiring. I mean, he's just making a short film, but there's a lot to that. Like you see his drive, his passion in trying to make this short film. I don't know. I highly recommend American movie to any creative out there, whether it's writing, filmmaking, comic making, whatever it is. I highly recommend watching this movie. I think it can not entirely be a kick in the pants. I'm not saying that, but more of like man, like you see Mark doing his thing, like it inspires you. It's like, okay, like this is nice. This is good. I liked it so much that I found Mark's Instagram. Oh, I also forgot to mention that documentary came out in 1999. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. So
No,
this is
that was
yeah. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. So it is very like late 90s, which I do like. Uh, and it spans the documentary crew that was with Mark. It spans from like I think 95 to 97, like 2 years that they're with Mark and all these character of people. But I liked it so much that I found Mark's Instagram page and I saw he had a website and stuff. And he does this periodically sometimes. He has pre-orders for Coven, because spoiler alert, it's not a spoiler alert, it's what the documentary is about. The documentary is about him making Coven. By the end, yes, Coven is made. I liked it so much that I went and pre-ordered a VHS copy of Coven, a signed VHS copy of Coven that cost me $42.
Jeez.
That's how much I want to see this short film and how much I liked Mark and this documentary and stuff. I don't even have a VHS player. I got to go get a VHS player.
Yeah. After hearing all this, we're going to have to like watch this together or something.
Yes. Here's this would be a good idea. Do you have, well, I guess you don't have to have it. Do you have Prime?
I do.
Okay, it's on Prime. American Movie, the documentary is on Prime.
Okay.
I highly recommend watching it.
Yeah,
I think you'll like it. Like any creative, I think will really like this.
Yeah, I'll watch the documentary, and then we're gonna have to get our hands on a functional VHS player.
I don't think that's going to be too hard. I'm going to look around at thrift stores. I remember thrift stores a couple of years ago used to have VHS players.
At least from my memory, every VHS player that my family ever used to own eventually reached a point where it just started eating tapes.
Crap! I didn't think about that.
I don't know if a whole lot of them are gonna not do that anymore.
What I'll do is I'll because they're going to be cheap at a thrift store. I don't see it being over $10 for a VHS player at a thrift store. I'll buy a couple of them, and I've got some VHS tapes like just stuff that's not worth anything. I'll test them. I'll make sure they're all good and stuff before putting $42 Coven in it.
Yeah,
but which I haven't got it yet.
$42 collector's item Coven.
Yeah, I haven't got it yet. Like it should come in. He said whenever I ordered it between 4 and 8 weeks. Now that's basically like 2 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But I like that idea. Teo will watch American Movie.
Yeah.
And then we will watch Coven the way it was meant to be watched on VHS.
Yes. You talking about this reminds me that Joel Haver this year came out with a few movies on his YouTube channel that I need to watch. Like I was just I was just thinking about how like how you somehow managed to find all of the weirdest, most obscure things.
I'm surprised I've never heard of this documentary before. Like I am genuinely surprised because I found out about it like 2 to 3 weeks ago, like right before Mexico. I found out about it, downloaded it so I could watch it on the plane and watch it on the plane. But yeah, I'm surprised I've never heard about it before.
Yeah.
But I liked it a good bit. This isn't really a spoiler, really, but the documentary did fairly well in '99, to the point where Mark and Mike made a cameo on Family Guy
What?
as themselves, which sounds so weird because it is kind of niche. This documentary was kind of a niche thing.
Yeah.
It seems so weird because they appear in basically, I can't remember if it's one of the, this reminds me of a time when, I can't remember if it's one of those moments, but it's basically that. Like they're there for like, yeah, they're there for like 15 or 20 seconds basically. And then they were also in a Green Bay Packers Super Bowl commercial. And then there's like one or two other things, but it's interesting. Like Mark was also on like a semi-frequently guest on David Letterman.
Really?
Like he was on Letterman for like at least 5 times or so.
Jeez.
So it's interesting. So yeah, Teo's going to watch American Movie. Coven will be in, and that's another thing. I say short film. It's not like what you may think with a short film. I think it's like 37 minutes or 40 minutes or something.
Okay. Yeah. That's
So
about usually what I think of for a short film.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to mention that to where it's not like he spent over 2 years making a 3-minute short film sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think now it's good that you make that distinction for our listeners because not a lot of people are well versed in the difference. But I think like the main difference between like a short is that a short is like 3 to 5 minutes long.
Right.
Like a short film is pretty much anything under an hour.
Yeah. I went to I'm briefly going to talk about this and I'll get back to American Movie. But I went to a film festival for the first time last year in November. And you definitely see that variety. You can see stuff that's like 5 minutes long. There's also some stuff that's like 45 minutes long. Most of the stuff that was really long really tested my patience. It is a film festival though, so
the whole point is to test your patience.
Yes, yeah. Oh man, that's the thing. I want to do another film festival again because that was my first one, and it was very specific film festival. It was I'm blanking on the guy's name. Who's the guy that is responsible for Cthulhu?
Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft.
Lovecraft, thank you. Yes, it was a H.P. Lovecraft film festival.
Okay, that's interesting.
So it was all horror / cosmic horror.
Yeah,
was essentially the short films, as well as there were a few feature films that they showed. So it was interesting, but I want to go to another film festival eventually, and it be more than just that one distinct thing.
Yeah. Next year, I'm going to an H.R. Giger film festival.
Well, it was like
That'll be
it was interesting.
Less discomforting.
Yeah. I had a good time, but man, it being my first film festival, I didn't realize how exhausted at the end of the day, because I didn't do all 3 days. I just did Saturday. Okay. I didn't realize how exhausted I would be by the end of the day from watching short films and feature-length films. But I was exhausted to the point where, like, because I took my sister went with me, and like we watched a section of short films where it was like about a 2-hour block of short films, maybe 1.5 hours to 2 hours. And then right after there was a feature length film. We watched that. And then right after the feature length film, there was either another section of short films you could watch or a feature-length film. We decided to not do either of those. We were like, we need like an hour and a half break. Like this is exhausting. And then there was more stuff afterwards. But man, it sounds like such a baby thing to say. And I thought I was a movie guy, but film festivals, that's tough. I can't do back-to-back stuff for 8 hours or more, 8 plus hours.
It really gets exhausting. Like that one year when me and my family watched through all 3 extended editions of The Lord of the Rings for my birthday.
Oh yeah.
That's what I wanted to do. We were all so dead tired by the end of the day. Because that's 12 straight hours of just a movie.
The plus side with that is, all of those are quality, and they are all really good.
Those are good.
The downside with the film festival is it's mixed
like a box
bag.
of chocolates.
Yes, it's more like the Russell Stover box of chocolates, where like a third of these I really like, the other 2/3 I'm not a fan of. Or
the thing is, I like most of what's in a Russell Stover box of chocolates myself.
Not all of them are bad. I think, and I'm not saying like the 2/3 are bad. I think a lot of them just taste too like meh. Like, yeah, it tastes like chocolate.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't anything special.
Yeah. It's one thing that I like that Russell Stover started doing is they started including guides to which chocolates.
Yes. Yeah. I remember being a kid and like eating that box of chocolates or going through it, and yeah, it's just a crapshoot of what's good and what's not.
It's like your mom says, "All right, you can have one chocolate. You gotta guess real good."
Yeah.
You pull the coconut one.
And that's the thing, like if you go off of appearance, that's not always a good thing because it's just chocolate coated. But if you're like, ooh, like this one, like it looks like it might have caramel or this in it based on what I'm looking at, and then you pop it in your mouth, it's like, what is this? No, but yeah, American movie. I highly recommend people watching. Within the next couple weeks, I'm going to get me a VHS player, so I'll be ready to watch Coven. There's probably a way to watch it online, but I'm going to watch it on VHS, dang it.
The way that the creators intended.
Yes.
We're all about the artist's vision here.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, like the goal was to make Coven, but the overarching thing was to make Coven so that, and he had like a plan laid out on a whiteboard to make Coven and try to sell 3,000 copies of it. If he sold 3,000 copies at $15 a piece, he would have the funds to make Northwestern. That's the overall goal of in American movie and the documentary.
Did he achieve it?
Yes, but spoiler, it's not really a spoiler because it's not really about Northwestern. It's about Coven. Yeah. He still has never made Northwestern.
Okay.
So it may have been one of those things because he's still a creative person. He's still making short films or helping or working on music videos or just random stuff here and there. Yeah. It may have just been one of those things where like the passion was kind of lost for it.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know.
I definitely get that.
Yeah. Because I mean it was like the documentary came out in 99, so it's 25 years ago. Likely he's never going to make Northwestern.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
he's still
if he was gonna make that movie, he would have made it by now. Probably.
He made a short documentary I don't know how long it is. I don't think it's more than like 30 minutes. He made it and it came out in 2017. It was the next like super notable thing aside from like a few music video type stuff that he helped with. Um, and it's called like the Dundee Project, and it deals with like essentially UFO sightings within the Wisconsin area. And I want to watch it because it looks kind of funny, like him interviewing just random people in Wisconsin and talking about this stuff. I'll check it out.
Yeah,
I'll see how it is.
unfortunately, my homeland breeds a very particular sort, and
It was very entertaining.
UFO sightings and Bigfoot sightings are unfortunately common up there.
Yeah.
We the town I grew up in, there used to be like a group of Bigfoot hunters that would come through like annually.
Oh, okay.
And like you could always tell when they were coming through because one of the local diners would start selling foot-long hot dogs. They called it the Bigfoot long. They'd keep them going basically like to celebrate, like, hey, the Bigfoot hunters are back. And like the thing is, I don't even think it was any famous Bigfoot hunters. It was just like regular Bigfoot hunters.
Yeah.
They weren't documentarians or anything.
I'm trying to see what town Mark Borchardt was from. Menomonee Falls. Menomonee Falls.
Menominee Falls.
Menominee Falls. Okay. Yeah, that's where most of the documentary takes place.
I don't know that I've ever been there.
Okay.
I don't think I have. I actually don't remember. Are you looking at a map? What towns are close to it?
Let me see. The way he's talked about, because I also listened to interviews of him, which there's not a lot of, and it's not like a loss and fame thing. It's just more he doesn't really care to do interviews and stuff. And he's not. That's the thing. He's not like mad or ashamed of American Movie. Like he likes the documentary and he likes the stuff he makes. He's not a negative person. He's got an interesting outlook on life, but he just doesn't see the point of doing the interviews and stuff if like there's not much for him to say or not much new stuff he cares to say, sort of thing.
Yeah, I get that.
Oh, it's really close to Milwaukee. Okay, I thought it was because I remember in interviews or in the documentary he talks about Milwaukee a decent bit.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like I don't feel like I was ever in Milwaukee very frequently.
I gotcha.
My family would regularly, I mean, once every few years, we would visit Waukesha because we had family there. But
yeah.
But Milwaukee, I don't think we made very frequent trips to. Not to my memory. I like a lot of my memory of basically my entire life before I hit the age of 15 is very hazy.
I gotcha. Yeah, it looks like it's like just on the outside of Milwaukee. Yeah, but highly recommend this film. It's a nice slice of life of someone, a creative that has a passion while also holding down the things of life.
Yeah.
And he and his best friend are quite the characters. So, yeah. American Movie, that's my last recommendation.
My one worry is if I watch that movie, I might pick my accent back up.
You might.
Listen to it talk.
Yeah. Yeah, Mark and Mike, you do hear the accent, but because of like his smaller monotone voice, you don't hear it as thickly. But Mark, you can definitely hear the accent.
Yeah.
So, American Movie, everyone, check it out. Of the three recommendations I mentioned, that's my number one, American Movie.
All right. Well, Brandon, I gotta tell you something
Yes.
about my family. When I was younger, I always wanted a Segway,
I see. I see.
but my parents wouldn't let me have one because they thought I would fall off of it and break my neck. So that's why we don't have one for our next segment.
That makes sense.
We're doing the manga study next.
Yes.
Let me open up my notes real quick because unfortunately I didn't do that ahead of time. Whatever. Tell me you would do better, listener. All right. So here it is. So for anyone unfamiliar, and it has been a while since I've done this, what I'm doing is I am reading 20 manga series available on the Shonen Jump mobile app from across multiple eras. I'm not going to list which ones I'm reading because you're about to hear them listed off and then talked about. So I shouldn't have to bother. You can pick it up as we go. Now, I will say one thing. There's something that I discovered today because I thought, you know what? This is something I should probably Google. So you know my thoughts on Saint Seiya so far for the most part, right, Brandon?
Yeah.
And I decided, you know what? Maybe I should Google it real quick just to see if it has a sequel series. And you know what? It does. But it's not available on the Shonen Jump app. I tried a couple times to look for it.
Okay.
So here's what I'm doing. I'm not replacing Saint Seiya with anything. I'm gonna keep going with the series because at this point, I'm 4 milestones deep. I don't want to rush through 20 chapters of something else just to make up for like this lost time.
Right.
And unfortunately, with Saint Seiya, it would really be lost time because it has the highest page count per chapter. I've already started reading for milestone 5, and I read through a chapter that was 93 pages long for Saint Seiya earlier today. I was miserable.
That's longer than the Death Note sequel.
Yeah.
The Death Note sequel is like 80 something pages.
Do you want to know how long that is? That could have contained the number of Dragon Ball chapters that I read today nearly twice. So, yeah, Saint Seiya is not getting replaced with anything else. This is sunk cost fallacy here. Which I'm committing to wholeheartedly, because at this point it doesn't make sense to like give up on it. I'm like nearly a quarter of the way through.
Yeah.
And I did say at the beginning of this, I want to learn from the mistakes of these series as much as their successes. And Saint Seiya, who boy, are there mistakes? And the thing is, the only reason that I needed to switch JoJo out for something else is because the way that I needed to read JoJo, the way I wanted to read JoJo, would actually have been incomplete. Whereas with this, it like if I stop at the end of an original series without pursuing a sequel, that's not exactly incomplete.
Okay. Yeah.
So for the sequel to Saint Seiya to not be available on the Shonen Jump app doesn't violate my goals.
Right.
Now with other series that do have sequels, Dragon Ball, Naruto, others, I still fully intend to read their sequels because those are available on the Shonen Jump app. So Dragon Ball Super and Boruto are both fully on this list. Just later, I have to get through Dragon Ball and Naruto first.
Right.
But with Saint Seiya, it's okay to stop at chapter 111. The mercy of Saint Seiya is that it has the smallest chapter count. The cruelty of it is that it has probably the highest page count.
Yeah. Yeah, it has small chapter count, but if you if you compare it to regular manga, it's like, oh, really? I'm reading like 300, if not more, worth of chapters.
I've been trying to keep track of which volume of each manga I've reached. Pretty much every single one except for, I want to say, Jujutsu Kaisen. I've reached the 3rd volume. Although technically, from volume 0 to volume 2, I'm 3 volumes deep on Jujutsu Kaisen. Do I know how many volumes into Saint Seiya I am? And this is 100% because of the page count, not the chapter count.
Right. Based on page count. Let's see, what chapter are you in right now?
I'm I believe I'm about to start chapter 25 on the next time I go in for a reading session. It's going to be chapter 25. So thank God I'm almost done with this milestone for that one.
Volume, I'm assuming like 10 or something.
Okay, overshot it a little bit. I'm at volume 7.
Okay. Those are some kind of thick volumes.
Yeah. But yeah, like
the usual Tankobon volumes, like 180, 200 pages, maybe.
Oh yeah, I can imagine they're only getting about 4 chapters a volume.
Yeah.
Like at most. But this is like the I want to say 3rd total chapter to exceed 70 pages. The first chapter was expected because like first chapters are usually double length. But like then there was a chapter that was just like 80 pages long for some reason somewhere in the series. I was like, oh God. And then this one, I looked at the page count for chapter 24. It was chapter 24 that was 93 pages long. So yeah, I'm not talking about that chapter today for this milestone. This is milestone 4. So for most of the series, it's going to be chapters 16 to 20.
What I will say
of Jujutsu Kaisen, which I believe is chapters 12 to 16 for this one.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to forget or just not say what I was about to say, because I'm now thinking I want to do a little dive on what is the series called again that you're talking about right now? Saint Seiya. Thank you. I want to do a little dive.
As Knights of the Zodiac.
Okay. I want to see the frequency it came out in the original magazine.
Yeah, this, like, I can't imagine this was coming out weekly. It takes up too much space.
Yeah. Yeah, this is maybe a monthly thing. Maybe.
Okay. All right. Well, then that explains why it's given so much space. And like it feels like it may have been treated like a prestige series or something, which, good God, if that was their standard.
Yeah, for real.
Because like, oh, like the stretch of chapters that I read for milestone 4 was starting to get frustrating. Chapters 21 to 25 so far have been genuinely like I'm not gonna say infuriating, that's too passionate a word, aggravating.
Right.
I am starting to actually develop like negative emotions about the series now, because it's like nearly a quarter of the way done, and it's not any better.
Okay, so I can't figure out like what each chapter came out at a time. Maybe I can in a second. Maybe I can see if Wikipedia has anything. But this is saying the first manga series came out from January 1986 to December 1990.
Yeah, that's correct.
And it's all 28 volumes. So a little over 5 years.
Yep.
How many chapters did you say? 111?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that's every 2 weeks just about.
Oh my God.
That is wild.
Goodness gracious. Oh my God. Okay, so we're getting into milestone 4.
Gotcha.
So we're going to start by talking about a series that I like. Dragon Ball chapters 16 to 20. Isn't it nice to start with good things? This stretch of chapters maintains the steady pace towards the conclusion. Oh, right. Sorry, I never finished explaining. I'm reading notes that I take down every 5 chapters for these 20 manga series that I'm reading from Shonen Jump. So
Gotcha.
that's the rundown for the audience members who don't know what this is or have forgotten. All right, so Dragon Ball chapters 16 to 20. This stretch of chapters maintains the steady pace towards the conclusion. Toriyama doesn't miss the opportunity to squeeze as many great jokes into these chapters as he can, from Pilaf's childish idea of sexual humiliation to Oolong's world-saving panty wish. The jokes in this series are always rock solid, if a bit problematic by modern standards. The climax of the original Dragon Ball saga should be coming in the next milestone, and I'm excited to see it.
Nice.
Any questions?
In this new set of chapters, were there any prominent characters that were introduced? Or have most of them already been introduced?
I do believe Pilaf was introduced in the segment. It's been a while since I read these chapters. I've been very busy with school reading for the past couple of months. But yeah, I do believe Pilaf, Mai, and the dog character whose name escapes me were introduced here.
Okay.
But yeah, so Pilaf was a fun little, like, basically last-minute villain for the saga. And yeah, like within these chapters, his plans for world domination are foiled when Oolong wishes for panties. Fantastic joke to end basically the climax, or not climax, but conflict. That's the word I'm looking for. Basically like resolve what little conflicts the series had for its first 20 or so chapters by just like just the last second world saving. I wish for the panties of a hot babe. Those are Oolong's words in the English translation. I wish for the panties of a hot babe.
Yeah.
And the dragon grants that wish and then disperses the balls. So it's fantastic. I remember in like one of the older English dubs for the series, they had to censor that, and they changed it to like, I wish for the world's most comfortable pair of underpants. But no, since then I believe it has been corrected to the original version of I wish for the panties of a hot babe. Because goodness gracious, is early Dragon Ball just the horniest dang thing in the world.
Yeah.
Like, I'll have more to say about that in Milestone 5, but oof. All right, next up. Saint Seiya chapters 16 to 20. Oh, you can tell I'm getting fed up with the series even just by the way I wrote the notes. This one is becoming a bit exhausting. The heroes have died for about the 100th time in a fifth as many chapters, and their cloth, the source of their power, shatters every 2 pages. I am committed to completing every series on the list, but I don't see any major improvements on the near horizon for this one. That's the end of my notes for that stretch of chapters. I'm going to have much stronger words for the next milestone. So, do you have any questions on that? I think I really covered all my thoughts on Saint Seiya up top.
Yeah. I was just looking at Wikipedia on the specific chapters that you had mentioned, 16 through 20. And yeah, it based on the way all of this is looking, because the volumes, like the Tankobon volumes, came out, looks like every 4 months. So yeah, I think it is like every 2 weeks one of these chapters was coming out.
Yeah. But yeah, to be 20 chapters in, and it's been relentless action, right? It doesn't feel like there's any proper narrative here.
Right.
Like, all these characters keep saying these things like they're important, but so far none of them have convinced me anything they are doing means anything. And like every fight is still, I use my special attack against you. Oh, well, actually, I'm immune to your special attack. And now I use my special attack against you, and mine's gonna work because I'm the good guy. The bad guy's like, it looks like it worked, but it didn't. Now I'm gonna use my special attack against you because apparently we take turns. And then the bad guy's like, no, the good guy's like, no, that killed me. And then like, they're like, oh, but I got better. And then they're like, now I use my ultimate special attack against you. The bad guy's like, no, it's impossible. You shattered my armor and you killed me. And this is going to stick because I'm the bad guy.
Well, it looks like
And
it looks like it had a fandom if it got 111 chapters in a sequel. But yeah,
and
definitely, I'm assuming of the time sort of thing.
yeah, Saint Seiya has an incredible legacy. I don't understand why.
Yeah.
They are drawn so stiffly, right? That like
Right.
they all look like they have back problems. And that like the armor they wear is so clunky. How do they move in it? And like you look at the armor, you're like, no wonder like they move so stiffly. The armor's in the way, and then they do all these crazy moves, but like none of the moves look crazy. Like okay, all right, I'm getting fired up. So, like you read Dragon Ball, right? You can understand how Goku does everything he does. He's a squishy little ball of dough for like the first 100 chapters of Dragon Ball, and so like you can tell by looking at the designs, early Dragon Ball especially, like kind of a cartoon physics level. So like the squash and stretch that occurs isn't weird. And then like in Saint Seiya, there is no squash and stretch. There's nothing cartoony about it. So like the really bulky, clunky designs of all the characters' armor looks like it's nothing but stifling, and no wonder all the choreography for the fights is so stiff and uncreative, and they just keep doing the same things over and over.
Yeah, I think I looked at it in a previous manga study we did, but yeah, the art is not it. I'm looking at it now.
Look at their faces. Yeah. They're all the same and like weirdly proportioned and off to the side. And
yeah.
Like you get what I'm saying, right? Like it's and all the like last minute revelations that keep having to happen during battles because there's no time to actually tell a story because all the characters are too busy posturing about how cool they are. And no, that one I have to save that one. I just save that one for next time.
Yeah, the face off to the side thing. I get what you mean. I'm not a fan of that because the eyes are looking at you and they're the same size, but then the nose and the mouth is to the side as if they're looking to the side, kind of. But their eyes aren't showing that they're looking to the side.
Yeah, the eyes are straight on, but the nose and mouth are always facing either left or right. And it's unsettling.
Yeah.
That's not how people look, Mr. Japanese name that I've forgotten. Whoever the artist was, I don't care. All right, I want to talk about another good one now.
All right.
Yu Yu Hakusho, chapters 16 to 20. The series has finally transitioned out of its initial premise of a ghost earning his life back, and it has moved into a new storyline now that Yusuke is resurrected. The alliance between Yusuke and Kuwabara is being slowly established. The ray gun has been introduced. That's Yusuke's main attack. And Hiei and Kurama have made their first appearance. The series is beginning to take its more permanent shape here. So everything I mentioned in this stretch was a bit mechanical in terms of the way it functions because overall, I don't think Togashi had a lot of room to dig more into the like human level emotional storytelling that he's really good at.
Yeah.
Which is fine. He really jam-packed all that into the first 15 chapters anyway, so it's okay to do something that's a little more story forward.
Yeah.
Now that the characters are really established. But yeah, like the series is taking on more of a permanent shape here. Like this is the cast is starting to round out, and it's starting to look more like what it's going to be for the remainder of the series.
Okay.
Real quick, I'm going to set this down and go pee again real quick.
Okay. Alrighty.
So yeah, we both pee. Not a lot to say on Yu Yu Hakusho this time around. Still really good. Still one of my favorites that I'm reading so far.
Okay.
All right, next up, One Piece, chapters 16 to 20. The series keeps the energy rolling from the previous stretch and moves straight into the full final battle with Buggy and his crew. Zoro and Luffy both get full battles with their major opponents for the arc, with Buggy's backstory and connection to Shanks fully explored in only a few pages. This feels mercifully brisk compared to how long the story arcs become in the future, even with nearly 10 chapters of nonstop action. So yeah, like even this early on, One Piece is a lot more like prolonged, like fight forward compared to the others.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty much like 10 solid chapters of battle in this arc.
Oh dang.
Yeah. Which this early on in a series feels like a lot.
Mm.
Then of course you look at Saint Seiya and it's like, oh, it's been 20 straight. Okay, all right. Something that I noticed is common amongst a lot of the series, especially the action series that I'm reading for this milestone, is that right around here is where action starts ramping up and becoming more of a focus.
Okay.
So that's going to be a bit of a common theme running through this milestone.
Okay. Yeah, they're now, because I remember we talked about it, basically the 8 chapter mark or 10 chapter mark decides whether they keep going, like they keep publishing, or if it gets canned.
Yeah.
So at this point, they've already made the essentially the pilot episode, that being your 8 chapters. So now they're writing for what is more, what can be more, and we've had an additional 6, 7, 8 chapters of that. Now, let's fight.
Yeah, at this point, you can feel that like each series is kind of starting to feel more secure in itself, and starting to adjust to whatever its new pace or new normal is supposed to be.
Right.
Now that they cleared that 8 chapter cancellation mark and are, pretty decently past the 11 chapter minimum.
Yeah.
Like each series is starting to take shape.
Right.
All right, next up, Hunter x Hunter, chapters 16 to 20. Once again demonstrating a mastery over non-conventional conflict in what should be considered an action manga, Togashi ramps up tension and stakes in every chapter without directly placing any of the protagonists' lives on the line. This serves almost as a counterpoint to the relentlessly direct action and false tension of titles like Saint Seiya. Even in my notes, I can't help bringing it up in other title entries. But this really is a good counterpoint. Like, Hunter x Hunter feels like it has real stakes for the characters. Everything is tense. Like, whether or not they're passing this exam is always on the line.
Right.
Compare that to Saint Seiya, where the heroes are apparently dying every 2 chapters and then just getting up and continuing to fight.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea how much time is supposed to have passed in Saint Seiya at this point. Has this all been in one day, or has it been like 3 weeks? I can't tell. Like, genuinely, it's annoying. Hunter x Hunter's good. All right. Not much else to say on that one. Next up, Naruto, chapters 16 to 20. While other series are reaching the climax of their opening arcs, Naruto winds its pace down to familiarize the reader with the conflict and stakes of the story, as well as establish some character growth between Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, both as individuals and as a trio. A solid stretch and the perfect lead-in to what I'm sure will be the arc's finale within the next two milestones. Yeah, I don't quite remember how long it takes this first arc to reach its finale, because I have read this one before, as well as seen it a couple times in the anime. But yeah, like this, like chapters 16 to 20 of Naruto include some of the most important character moments, or well, especially early character moments for Naruto.
Right.
In particular, there's a sequence in which their teacher Kakashi tells them he's teaching them how to control their chakra flow more, and he says that the best training for that is to learn how to basically walk on vertical surfaces. So he tells them to learn how to run up a tree by channeling the chakra into the soles of their feet and using that to basically adhere to the tree. To take their kunai, mark every time they reach a peak and then start to fall again, and then try to pass that on the next go. Sakura climbs her tree first shot, while Naruto and Sasuke both struggle. And they're both... Now, Sasuke is, of course, ahead of Naruto by a good bit to start with.
Yeah.
Which frustrates Naruto, as it always does. So there's a moment where Sakura is watching them, and she assumes, like rather smugly, almost laughing about it to herself, she assumes that Naruto is going to get mad, give up, and go and pout. Because that is something that has been consistent with his character so far. Naruto has not been a character with any patience for training up to this point. But he has had some recent experiences that have shifted his perspective in this arc. So what he does is he goes up to Sakura and whispers in her ear so that Sasuke can't hear them, "Hey, can you tell me how you did that?" And that is like the first groundbreaking character moment for Naruto in the series. Because instead of giving up because he can't do it on his own, he tells someone, "I don't know how to do this, and I want your help." So like that's huge for him. He never asks for help.
Yeah.
And then later on, within like the same, I can't remember if it's that chapter or the next chapter, Sasuke asks Naruto, "Hey, what did she tell you?"
Yeah, that's funny.
Which is another big moment for Sasuke, because not only is he also asking for help, because he's also quite stubborn about that, but he's asking for help from Naruto of all people.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, and I love that moment for all three of them, because it also shakes Sakura's preconceptions about Naruto and Sasuke as people.
Right.
Particularly Naruto, but because like she is shown in the moment that like she's wrong about Naruto. He is capable of change, positive change, and he's doing it right in front of her.
Yeah.
So it's just really, really well done character work. So yeah, I like it. It's good. Naruto's good. Next one. Claymore, chapters 16 to 20. The story of Teresa and Claire continues on with the touching relationship between the two protagonists at its core. I'm quite curious to see what becomes of Teresa and how it leads to Claire's transformation into who she is in the present. The action remains engaging and quickly paced, and the Claymore versus Claymore battles have added some much needed variety to the series' set pieces. So yeah, this it's Claymore is still in a flashback arc right now.
Okay.
Where it's going over Claire's kind of origin story about how she traveled with before Claire was a Claymore. she traveled with a Claymore named Teresa, who at first didn't want her around, but then the two of them form like kind of a pseudo sisterly relationship. You could read it as like Teresa takes on a maternal role, but it feels a little more like sisters to me.
Right.
But yeah, like in this stretch of chapters, the story reaches a point where Teresa kills humans for Claire's sake, to save her, which under no circumstances are Claymores permitted to kill humans, regardless of like whether or not it's to save human lives.
Right.
Claymores are only authorized to kill the monsters called Yoma, and if their organization finds out they killed humans, then they send other Claymores to kill them.
Okay.
But Teresa is the best Claymore, so it's almost impossible to kill her.
Yeah.
So that's leading to some pretty interesting like Teresa versus other Claymore fights. I'm really interested to see what exactly happens to Teresa. I want to know. She probably dies. I'm assuming she dies. But then again, this series is just different enough that maybe she lives and disappears. Either way, I know it eventually results in Claire also becoming a Claymore.
Yeah.
Because she's a Claymore in the present storyline of the series.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I noticed that Claymore, even though it's published in a shonen magazine and has like shonen levels of blood and gore, is structured very much like a seinen series along the lines of Berserk or Vinland Saga,
Yeah.
where it starts with your main character already kind of cold and jaded from like their experiences, and like it does a couple of brief arcs to introduce you to them, and then it cuts to an extended like flashback arc to get to know them. Because that happens in Berserk, that happens in Vinland Saga, and now I see that it happens in Claymore too.
Yeah, Berserk says let's do 12 volumes of this flashback. It's good. It's really good, but it is funny that we do basically 2 volumes of present and then 12 volumes of flashback, and then let's go back to present.
Yeah. Well, that 12 volumes of flashback is, for many people, the only Berserk they know.
Yeah.
A lot of people only know the Golden Age arc.
Yeah, they only want to adapt that, or they start adapting it and they get through that, and then it gets canceled, or they just don't have the funds or something, or the viewership to keep going.
Yeah, for some reason, Golden Age is the only arc that gets any love when it comes to adaptations. Because they did try adapting the rest of Berserk at some point, but the animation was so abysmal that no one wanted to watch it. It was ugly as ass cheeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, no, Claymore is fantastic so far. I really like this series.
Nice.
All right, next up. Bleach, chapters 16 to 20. This stretch of chapters mainly focuses on trucking along at a good pace and maintaining something of a status quo from the previous stretch. A few new ideas and characters get introduced, but nothing is fleshed out in depth. Tight Kubo's downright bizarre sense of humor pops up in short bursts here and there, and the series pretty much just keeps a steady course.
Okay.
This stretch did start digging into Ichigo's backstory, like the death of his mother and what exactly caused it. But honestly, as far as like the overall narrative of Bleach goes, I'm not super convinced at this stage that his mother's death is super important. I know it becomes important later because I've not read the Bleach manga in full, and I'm not up to date on the most recent arc of the anime since it started its revival. But I do know, quick spoiler alert for anyone who's interested in Bleach, I do know that Bleach's mom comes from like some sort of lineage of Quincy's, which haven't been introduced in the manga where I'm at now. But the Quincy's are like a race of humans who hunt hollows.
Okay.
And when Ichigo meets a Quincy for the first time, that's when he learns that Soul Reapers aren't the only ones who kill hollows.
Mm.
But he also learns that Quincy's don't like Soul Reapers, and that's a big part of things that come later. So, but yeah, one of the weird things about like Bleach, the way it goes later on, is that like Ichigo becomes every type of superpowered being that like is introduced in Bleach by some means or another.
Mm.
Like by the end of Bleach, Ichigo is a Soul Reaper, a Quincy, a Hollow, and a Fullbringer, all of which in combination come with their own names. But yeah, it's interesting. It would be like if Spider-Man had like a finite publishing timeline, and by the end of the series he was not just Spider-Man but also a mutant and a Hulk and Asgardian by the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really all I have to say on Bleach. There's not a whole lot else going on in chapters 16 to 20.
Okay.
Oh goodness, we only got all right. I might need to pick up the pace here. All right, Toriko, chapters 16 to 20. After the introduction of a potentially major supporting character in Coco, the series takes the opportunity to really start opening up its world and digging into the lore and societal structure in the back half of these chapters. The monster designs remain top-notch, hitting that perfect middle ground between Akira Toriyama and Kentaro Miura style monsters. Like if for me personally, if there was a sliding scale of monster design, Akira Toriyama would be on one side, Kentaro Miura on the other, and then the author of Toriko right in the middle.
Okay, nice.
The tales also seem to lean even harder on the legendary monster hunter vibe, really building Toriko up as a jack of all trades kind of character, similar to classical depictions of Hercules or Beowulf. Yeah, like I really like how much Toriko leans into the whole like legendary monster slayer vibe.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's mostly all I have to say on Toriko. Like the characters are still very likable, the world's still very interesting, and it's still like exploring a lot of like the surface level of what it's doing.
Okay.
So it's taken a little bit to dig deeper, but I really get the distinct feeling that it's about to start going hard on its actual like story.
Yeah.
So could be wrong about that, but I don't think I am. Just like Adrian Monk. I could be wrong now, but I don't think so. All right, next up. Tokyo Ghoul, chapters 16 to 20. This series feels perfectly structured for my study. Every 5 chapters has the flow and tension of an episode of television, picking up at perfect places and ending with tense cliffhangers. All in all, it feels like the series has finished setting its stage and is ready to actually dig into the main thrust of the narrative. Themes, characters, and conflicts have all finally been firmly set in place, leaving the series with nowhere to go but forward. Yeah, Tokyo Ghoul at chapter 20 feels like it's finally like, all right, everything's in place. Now here we go.
I don't even remember what happens at that point.
This is the stretch where Toka has killed an investigator for the first time.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah, and then like they're infiltrating the ghoul hunter headquarters as like disguised as students, And then the guy with the wild eyes, the one who killed the mom ghoul, is like, "Why don't you guys come through our ghoul metal detector?" And then like it ends on that cliffhanger.
Okay.
Yeah, quite interesting place to be in. All right, next one. One Punch Man, chapters 16 through 20.1. Now, that might sound a little weird to everybody. I'm reading fractional chapters of One Punch Man as though they are just a part of the main chapters they're associated with.
Okay.
Because they're just, it was originally published as a web manga where there's really no page count limit.
Yeah.
So I assume for the print version, they just split chapters up into parts. So yeah, I'm reading them as though they're all one big chapter anytime they're split up like that, though. Alrighty. One Punch Man, chapter 16 to 20.1. This series manages to know exactly when a joke might run stale and pivots masterfully every time. Just as the idea of Saitama and Genos being the only cast members of consequence has run its course, One Punch Man opened its world up with the introduction of the Hero Association and its complicated rules and politics. It gives a distinct sense that this series has found a narrative focus and has begun to genuinely grow and expand into something beyond its core premise. Yeah, One Punch Man has hit a place where its cast is expanding and its premise is shifting.
Okay.
It's still about Saitama, the guy who wins every fight in one punch, but it's also about more than that now.
Right.
So it's interesting. It's really ramping up. All right, next up. Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma, chapters 16 to 20. I have a fun little side note at the end of this one that I wrote down probably to make sure that I read it. All right, this stretch of chapters really demonstrates the relentless nature of the professional cooking world by putting the protagonists through a gauntlet of challenges. It also introduces 2 more rivals for Soma, the Aldini brothers. This makes 4 total rival characters in a series that's only 20 chapters deep. It continues to exhibit a creative approach to food and how to cook good food for cheap. Side note, the cutest, milfiest little teacher ever was introduced in these chapters, and her clothes didn't explode off her body during her tasting scenes. Shameful. That's all I have to say. It's like, when it comes to female character design, this Food Wars knows exactly what I want to look at. But when it came to that character in particular, it's like, why did you have to go for more tasteful and artistic depictions of what food tastes like for her? Why couldn't her clothes explode off? Shameful. Anyway, My Hero Academia is next. My Hero Academia, chapters 16 to 20. These chapters drastically ramp up the action and properly establish exactly the kind of threats the protagonists will be facing in the series, giving interesting character moments for characters like Bakugo, Momo, Ida, Kaminari, and Todoroki, while still squarely focusing on Deku, really helps to build up the cast a bit more and establish their roles. These chapters also present the first real look at All Might's power and his role as a protector in the early chapters. Yeah, that stretch for My Hero really finally set in stone how scary the world is outside the school. Because of just how menacing the villains are for what seems like no reason.
Right.
It's an interesting approach to a superhero school story.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Black Clover, chapters 16 to 20. Black Clover. All right. Here we go. All right. This series continues to be a surprisingly brisk read, with pages flying quickly once the action really gets rolling. This stretch features what is probably the longest fight in the series so far, and features engaging fight choreography, consistently impressive art, and an interesting narrative flow. It also features an interesting progression of power for both Asta and Yuno. There isn't much to talk about outside of what the story is doing mechanically, though. This stretch is focused pretty squarely on the action and doesn't dig into any of the series' themes or motifs with any depth. Again, kind of following that trend of the action is really starting now.
Right, yeah.
All right, next up, Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, chapters 16 to 20. Another instance of more action-heavy chapters similar to MHA and Black Clover. Something worth noting is that Demon Slayer's art, while not improving exactly, is becoming more consistent. Otherwise, it doesn't do much differently for this leg of the journey. Zenitsu was introduced in chapter 20, and it was mostly a very unfunny comedy routine centered on Tanjiro's first interactions with him. Ugh.
Dang, I didn't realize how late he was introduced into it.
Yeah, I'd been dreading his introduction.
Yeah.
You know my feelings.
You've seen the
him,
anime.
so, yeah.
Yeah, you've seen it. It doesn't get better. The plus side is not for you since you've seen the anime. You don't hear a voice. At least when I read it, I hadn't seen the anime, so I didn't hear a voice. But I did have a voice for it. But
was it whiny?
Well, yeah, because he's depicted as the most whiny person ever.
Yeah, he's very whiny in the show.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, so Demon Slayer's art is leveling out, though, which is a mark of improvement. So I'm hoping that the artwork itself at least starts to look better as it goes, now that it is consistent.
Yeah.
All right. Dr. Stone, chapters 16 to 20. Introducing the expanded cast of characters who will be joining Senku for the duration of the first major saga, this stretch of chapters had a lot of ground to cover and did so rather effectively. Kohaku and Chrome introduced an interesting new dynamic with Senku, distinct from his relationships with Taiju and Yuzuriha. While natural science is the series' primary focus and is well explored in these chapters, it becomes clear upon the introduction of primitive people and other sciences, particularly those of sociology and linguistics, have been overlooked. The idea that a village of people 3,700 years removed from modern humanity are still speaking intelligible modern Japanese is a bit of a stretch, but it's one that must be accepted if you want to buy into the remainder of the series. Hardly a tough pill to swallow, a nitpick at best, in my opinion. Yeah, to me, that's just something that I thought about, that, like, wait a minute, if they're 3,700 years removed from each other, why are these people still speaking modern Japanese?
Yeah.
They should be speaking, if not like some sort of weird future primitive Japanese, since they're not like an advanced people. They would be speaking effectively a different language altogether.
Right.
Rooted in modern Japanese, but distinct from it. All right. Like, we're not even 1,000 years removed from Old English, and they sound like completely different languages.
Yeah.
Old English sounds more like German.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on. Jujutsu Kaisen, chapters 12 to 16. This stretch of chapters started Yuji on his first real training arc and introduced a couple more characters, but otherwise did very little. It was mostly a fight between Gojo and Jogo, say that 10 times fast, which only had the result of Gojo learning that high-level cursed spirits are colluding with each other. Nothing thematically relevant is explored, resulting in a generally flat run of chapters. Yeah, once again, action-oriented, not much else to it.
Yeah.
All right. Chainsaw Man, chapters 16 to 20. This stretch resolves the Eternity Hotel's arc started in the previous stretch in a spectacular fashion. It genuinely reminds me of the kinds of action scenes I write. Thematically, I feel like this stretch leans a little too hard on the you gotta be crazy to survive in this world angle, and it makes the mistake of verbalizing that theme instead of leaving it as a subtext. It feels like something an edgy teenager thinks is a deep topic to explore, when in reality, the themes of motivation and the worthiness of one's aspirations that permeate the series are significantly more interesting and worthy of attention. Yeah, like Chainsaw Man has a problem of not really understanding what it's about. Because if you read this stretch of chapters, it thinks it's about like, ooh, you gotta be crazy to live in this world, kid. You gotta have a few screws loose. You gotta have screw. It really likes that phrase. You gotta have a few screws loose to survive. Are your screws tight? Let's loosen them up. Loosen those screws. I gotta knock your screws loose. Then we're gonna rattle around in there. Like, no, the themes of motivation and goals are what the series is about. Focus on that. That's way more interesting.
Right. Or is this where like they can't get out of the building?
Yeah, it's the one where Denji has to fight the thing for 3 days.
Yeah.
And he keeps biting chunks off of it to fuel himself.
Right.
Yeah. All right, next up. Mashal, Magic and Muscles, chapters 16 to 20. With the introduction of actual antagonists, this stretch really picked up the pace for the series. Mash and his friends are being faced with their first real challenge, but the full scope of it has yet to come into focus. There isn't much else to report. Yeah, that's really the beginning of and ending of my thoughts on that one. All right, Kaiju number 8, chapter 16 to 20, last one. This stretch ripped by at a blinding pace. The action is so engaging and interestingly choreographed that it's impossible to linger on any one panel, no matter how much the art makes me want to. This is the first extended stretch of chapters featuring Kafka in his kaiju form, something which will likely become more common as the series progresses. Yeah, this is the first time that the main character has been in his monster form for longer than like a chapter or half a chapter.
Oh, okay.
I think he spent 3 of these 5 chapters in his monster form, which is a long time for this series. So I'm assuming that's going to be more common as it goes on.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the manga study this time around. As I said, I've already started reading for Milestone 5. I still have, I think, chapter 25 of Saint Seiya to read before I can move on from that.
I gotcha. Well, I'll ask the question I ask each time at the end. The top 5 so far.
Top 5. I think you usually ask top 3. I'll do top 5 though.
Or top 3. Or it can be top 5. Whatever.
Okay. In no particular order. As is always the case, Tokyo Ghoul and Claymore are in there. They're really shaping up to be 2 of my favorites from this whole experience. As for another 3 to pick, I want to say that this one's hard. Well, Yu Yu Hakusho, obviously, as well. It's
I remember that was in there.
Yeah.
Before. Yeah.
It's hard to pick. I tend to lean more on whether or not something's quality catches me by surprise. So I want to say Toriko and what's a good 5th one? I feel like Black Clover, just based on like how shocked I am at how like really good the manga is at this phase so far. Because I remember watching the show and I was so bored by this point, like the equivalent point here in the series.
Yeah.
But for some reason in the manga, it's a lot more.
Just works better.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Well, any final thoughts regarding the manga study?
I wish I hadn't picked Saint Seiya for one of these. I picked it because I knew it was influential and I knew that a lot of people liked it. I really understand why it doesn't get very much attention nowadays, though.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's like because the thing is, like, I feel like it's really ungenerous of me to say Saint Seiya is worse than Demon Slayer. And I mean that like I'm being ungenerous to Demon Slayer by making that comparison. But unfortunately, like in terms of, because I'm needlessly harsh on Demon Slayer. It is a good series, but unfortunately, of all of the other series, the only thing keeping it from being the worst thing I'm reading right now is Saint Seiya.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like
Well,
Saint Seiya.
congratulations, Saint Seiya.
Yeah, Saint Seiya's bad. So, like my current thoughts are, I regret picking Saint Seiya for one of these, but at the same time, I don't, because this is also kind of exactly what I wanted. I needed at least one really bad one to,
Yeah.
because I want this to be a learning experience.
Right.
So we all have to live with our decisions.
That's perfect. That's a perfect message to everyone in life. We all have to live with our decisions.
And
And
Saint Seiya was one of mine.
Yes. A decision that I have to make within the next minute is that we must go. And I have been Brandon.
And I have been Teo.
And now we are not. Take care.
My knees hurt.